14th. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Kusamoto.
Here.
Member Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Edgar.
Here.
Mayor Hasselbrink.
Here. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Mayor Pro Tem Edgar. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please stay standing. Dear Lord, we just thank you tonight for all the blessings that you provide our families and our community. Lord, we just pray that you keep us safe, and we pray for those communities and those places overseas that are having such trouble, and it makes us realize how blessed we are to be here. Lord, we pray that tonight that you'll put your hand on us, give us wisdom, let us listen, make good decisions. And Lord, we just thank you for everything. Lord, I just pray that the graduating class of 2017 at Los Al High, you bless them, you keep them safe over the summer as they start their new life, their new beginning. Lord, thank you for everything. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Can you join me down,
Sure.
down front? I'd like to bring up Deacon Mario Guerra. How are you? How are you? So tonight we're going to recognize the 242nd birthday of the U.S. Army. June 14, 1775, the Second Continental Congress, representing the citizens of 13 American colonies, authorized the establishment of the Continental Army. For the past 242 years, the Army's central mission has been to fight and win the nation's war. The motto of duty, honor, and country is the creed by which the American soldiers live and serve. So I'd like, Deacon, if you'd like to...
Thank you. You said it all on there. Our United States Army has a special place in our hearts. It's older than our country, obviously. And Los Alamitos is a very special place with Joint Forces Training Base here. And today we celebrate the goodness of our Army that protects us. So on behalf of, I'm the civilian aide for the Secretary of the Army, Robert Spear. So on behalf of Secretary Spear, I want to thank you for your part in it, for celebrating and recognizing our Army. And a picture of this will be up on the Pentagon website by tomorrow on there. So I do want to recognize and thank you. You guys have a special place. And I did get a chance to read most of your bios. I've known Mayor Pro Tem Edgar for a while on there. A few of you are fellow Rotarians too, so I appreciate it. But thank you for what you do for our country, and thank you for representing our community. Now, I'm a former elected official. I know the amounts of money you can't accept on which I want to make sure that you have this on there. I'm the former mayor for the great city of Downey, so I know what you guys are doing. I mean, you get paid so much money to do this job. I know that. Of course. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Do you have a Navy?
We started out with that, so you got it. By the way, the United States Army out there is the second largest employer in the country out there. We have over 1 million employees, especially in the Army Reserve and the National Guard. So thank you. So Navy's in our hearts right now. Thank you very much.
So I'd like to bring up John Osborne for a special presentation, and also I'd like for the chief to come on up. This is a very generous donation to our... Oh, and absolutely. Come on, Explorers. Yep, perfect, thank you. Yeah, come on. So this year we have reemployed our Explorers program, and we're very excited about this program. And John Osborne and his wife, Dr. Patel, are big supporters of the police department, and this is near and dear to their heart. And so I'm going to turn it over to you, and you've got a couple minutes.
Okay, I won't.
We became aware that the Explore program had been instituted some time ago. And as I began to talk to some friends on council and others, and we asked, well, how are you funding this?
Oh, is that right? Oh, geez. Okay. Geez, I hate microphones. No, I don't. So we began to ask questions about how is this funded, and you know, I understand that you have a young man who was in the program some time ago, joined the Marine Corps, came back, and now is a member of the LoSal PD. And as Mayor Hasselbrink said, my wife is a big supporter of the PD. On occasion, we've had to have the PD or representative at our location. We happened to have a horse in the parking lot one time, and Chief happened to be there. It's a story unto itself. Going to make it short and sweet. My wife is not, Dr. Patel was not able to be here. She had a last-minute emergency patient. On behalf of my wife, Dr. Avani Patel, we'd like to present you with some seed money. This stuff costs money. I know your budgets are tight, and part of the reason we wanted to do that in this format is because it's televised and recorded, and we want to encourage other community members, other community businesses to step up to the plate and do this as well. I don't know how much money it takes to run this program. I know you've got significant costs involved along the way, and young men. And where's the young women? Where's the young women in the Explorer program?
There are about 6 explorers, and we will only able to get 3 here tonight for the summer vacation.
Okay. Well, I'm teasing you, Chief. I am absolutely teasing.
We do have a female in our group.
Okay. Good. And we need some balance there. Okay. So thank you for having us, and that's it.
John, come on up. You're not done yet.
Or somebody needs to go behind the wall. Oh, hopefully that. You might also explain how people feel safe at the meeting.
How can people make a donation?
All right.
I doubt if they take cash or credit cards, but I'm sure a check has a good audit trail for the city.
If I could, I'd just like to say a few words about our Explorer Post 658. That's our number, 658. And we disbanded our Explorer Post back in 2008. And there were a lot of reasons for that. Mostly, there's budgetary concerns. And we when I came on, I was talked to by the city manager, a number of council members about this was something that they really wanted to reconnect with the student youth in our community. And so we looked at that and talked with my captains and the sergeants, and obviously Corporal Brandt was selected to go ahead and be our Chief Explorer Advisor. We have a number of other officers that decided they wanted to volunteer and be assistant advisors. And then we went out and started trying to recruit. We were lucky. We had probably about 10 to 12 folks that came in, wanted to be an Explorer, but we did our vetting process and we got it down to about 6. We've had already 5 meetings, and before they even got uniformed up, so they had to actually demonstrate that they really, really wanted to be part of this program. And then we have an Explorer Academy, if you will, where they kind of get put through a boot camp of sorts. And there's one in July. We're not going to go ahead and push for that, but we're going to try to get these folks into, at least some of them, in October. And I think it's a 3 or 4 day? It is a week now. Okay, so yeah, and it's a live-in academy, so it's very difficult, and these kids grow up very fast in this, and we're just fortunate to have all the interest that we have in this, and it's going to grow. Like I said, it hasn't been around since 2008, so now everybody's starting to hear about it, and there are other kids that want to join, and it's a fine group. If you are interested, anybody, in helping to support that effort, we're asking folks. Actually, we're going through the city and then having it a check written to the city, and they can go ahead and earmark that for our Explore Post program. And it's definitely a worthy cause. And I just wanted to say thank you to Dan Brandt, our corporal that's running this. He's done a fine job with these young men and the one lady that we have involved in this. And I'll have to tell you guys know already, she's pretty sharp and she can keep you on your toes. So we're doing really well, and I appreciate having you here and helping us, and the council's support and the city manager's support in doing this. Thank you.
And before we sit down, I want to bring up our OCFA friends, Ken Cruz and Robert Acosta. Ken Cruz has been our current battalion chief, serving Los Alamitos and the surrounding areas. He is definitely a friend of the city, and he is going back to headquarters to do some important stuff, and he is turning the baton over to Robert Acosta to be our new battalion chief for this area. So I just wanted to make the introduction and make the face familiar to everybody, and we want to thank you for everything that you've done. You've been here quite a bit and definitely a friend of the city, and we look forward to the same relationship with you as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
First of all, I just wanted to thank the council and staff and the citizens just for giving us a wonderful opportunity. It's been a great, been just over 2.5 years now that I've served as your division chief, and just have been honored to do so. Got some great relationships out of it, and great learning. A couple of the accomplishments that I'm most proud of are, adding the 4th person over there to Engine 2 and making it a paramedic unit. And then creating the dispatch agreement with the base fire department, so now that we're dispatching for them for fire services, and just the great relationships that I have over there also. But I had the fortune of being able to have some influence on my successor in the selection, and you're going to be in good hands here with Robert Acosta, and I'd just like to give him the mic for a moment, if you don't mind.
Thank you. That didn't cost too much, but I have big shoes to fill. Chief Cruz was my direct supervisor for a few years when I was a battalion chief in this area. He's well respected in our organization. I hope to establish the relationships that he did with not just the council, but also the community. I've been with the organization for 27 years. I worked at Station 2 for many years in the early days, mowed that lawn plenty of times over the years. I worked with in both our younger days, we're running on some calls. So I know the community well. It means a lot to me, and I hope I can serve you as well as Ken did.
Perfect, thank you. And next I'd like to bring up Tony Cardenas from League of California Cities to do a legislative update for us.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Shelley Hasselbrink, members of the City Council, Tony with the League of Cities. Just to provide the council a state budgetary update, as well as an update on the major bills that the League is tracking on the city's behalf. The legislature did pass a budget last Thursday. $125 billion in total spending, about $9.9 billion in their reserves. In terms of how this budget fared for cities, in the past, what cities have been used to, this budget is actually rather well for cities. I have no real bad news to report. There's no revenues being taken away from cities. The one new piece of revenue for cities is $2.8 billion in new transportation funding. It was a deal that the legislature reached. Obviously, the League is tracking that and making sure that there's constitutional protections for that transportation money, but there's $2.8 billion for transportation. In terms of a major revenue sales tax allocation shift for the state, they changed their revenue collection policy. They took 90% of the responsibilities of the Board of Equalization and shifted it to a new department. It's called the Department of Tax and Fee Administration. In terms of, and the reason why it happened, there was a long long-term complaints of the governor, the treasurer. So finally, the state legislature did make some big changes to the BOE. In terms of why do cities care? Well, the BOE traditionally collects the sales tax and revenues for cities, collects it and distributes it. So that's why cities care. In terms of why, is this move a good move for cities? Is it a positive move? We have to wait and see. Our deputy director is going to be meeting with the governor and to talk about the rollout of this new tax administration. But just wanted to provide an update to the council that move has been put in place. I do have a handout here for the City Council. It's a 15-page report on the state budget. Provides a lot more detail that I'll leave with the staff. But there is one trailer bill that the League was opposing that I do want to update you all on. The League and the California Police Chiefs were opposing a trailer bill that was included in the budget, and it dealt with the time and place and manner of how cities can decide to place cannabis dispensaries in their city. Essentially, this trailer bill was sponsored by the industry, and they were trying to take away cities' local control to dictate if these businesses are allowed in their cities. So the California Police Chiefs and the League, we fought last year for this local control. We're fighting again for it this year, and I'm happy to report that bill was amended to our liking. We're now actually supporting the bill because it does retain local control. And again, that was a very big piece that the League was fighting for just a couple months ago on the state budget. And again, all that is included in this report that I'm going to give to you. I do want to thank the city. Los Alamitos is very active in writing letters of support and opposition when the League asked for the city to chime in. So thank you for that. I just want to highlight, just real briefly, a few bills that the city has adopted a position on and provide a status. AB 1250 is a bill that the League has been opposing. The city has joined us in opposition, and in essence would have virtually eliminated the city's ability to contract out for any service, whether it's a trash hauling service or a tree trimming service, because it would have put significant requirements for the city to contract out on ERI, for example, on a tree trimming service. This bill would have essentially eliminated the city's contracting ability. So the League, we asked cities to write letters in opposition. Los Al did. I'm happy to report that we did exempt cities out from this bill. So cities and special districts are no longer included in this bill. That's a significant victory for cities. But the bad taste in our mouth is that counties are still included in the bill. So counties will get impacted by the bill. We're still closely monitoring it because if the bill impacts counties this year, what's to say that another bill in the future to impact cities? So that is good news on AB 1250, but we're still monitoring the bill. Another bill that the city of Los Alamitos joined us in opposition is SB 649, dealing with small cell towers. This is an industry-sponsored bill sponsored by AT&T. It preempts your local authority to place small cell phones in small cell phone sites and towers in your city. We're opposing the bill. The bill is still moving forward. We have over 120 cities in opposition to it. But the bill is, again, it's heavily financed by the industry, and it's still moving forward. And it's awaiting a hearing date in the Assembly Communications Committee. And the final bill I want to just quickly highlight, AB 1479. The city did join us in opposition. It essentially puts a lot of requirements on cities to fulfill a public records request. It would increase the city's costs. So we're in opposition to the bill. Thank you for joining us in opposition, but that bill is still moving forward as well. It has a hearing date on the 27th of this month. And with that, just want to highlight two events that are coming up. The Orange County Division, which I manage, is having its next general membership meeting August the 10th in the city of Mission Viejo. We're going to be talking about the new transportation funding that's being rolled out, what cities are getting, and if that money is indeed protected. That meeting, again, is August the 10th, and our State League annual conference is coming up September 13th and 15th in Sacramento. And with that, I'll just conclude my presentation and open up to any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions up here? Thank you, Tony.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And next, I'd like to bring up Richard Kikuchi from LSL regarding the auditing.
Okay. Well, good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Rich Kikuchi, and I'm here tonight to kind of discuss and give you just a general overview of your upcoming June 30, 2017 financial audit. LSL has been engaged to do a financial audit, and so that basically means that we are just a second set of eyes as far as your financial results as of June 30, 17. The audit involves doing account analysis and assessment of your internal controls. Internal controls being those policies and procedures in place here at the city to safeguard the assets and also to detect and correct any errors in the financial reporting system. The goal of the financial audit really is, as I mentioned, we're a second set of eyes, so the goal really is that these statements that we're going to be issuing later this year are going to be materially correct. And so we're going to do the type of test work necessary that we can obtain reasonable assurance. We're not going to be looking at every transaction, but enough transactions to make us feel comfortable with the financial results. We actually started the audit already. We were here back in June, the week of June 5th. At that time, we assessed your controls. We did a lot of planning, all getting ready for when we come back out in October. We'll be here the week of October 9th and plan to issue your financial statements, I think, by the beginning or mid-December. So I'm here tonight in accordance with Statement of Auditing Standards 114, which really not only encourages but really requires that there is communication between auditors and those in charge with governance. Amongst the many things that SAS 114 delineates, it states that as auditors we are going to render an opinion on your financial statements, and that's true. Your financial statements are really thick, but there's a one-page auditor's report in there, and that's where we're going to render an opinion on how we on the results of the financial audit. SAS 114 also talks about responsibility in regards to financial reporting and conducting the audit. It talks a lot about internal controls. As your financial auditors, we will consider the internal controls, we will assess internal controls, and that's all a part of the planning process when we do your year-end financial audit. Also, on top of assessing controls, we also assess fraud risk. That's something that Statement of Auditing Standards 99 requires. And so as a firm, each year, and we did this actually back in the week of June 5th, we select a random number of city employees and we ask them some direct questions about fraud risks, tone at the top, different things as far as fraud goes. And we also do analytical procedures, looking at particular revenue accounts from year to year to see if anything kind of catches our eye. And so, so internal controls and fraud risks are two key components to our audit planning. So, in summary, LSL's been engaged to perform a financial audit, and we're well underway. We'll be back out in October to do the detailed account analysis. SAS 114 really, Statement of Auditing Standards 114 really requires that we have communication with those in charge with governance, kind of discuss what the audit's all about, and also, if you have questions or thoughts regarding the audit, I'm here. You can always get a hold of me. You can get a hold of me through Jason as well. And so that's the audit in a nutshell, and I am here to answer any questions if you might have any.
Do you have any questions? No. Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For oral communications, at this time, any individual in the audience may come forward to speak on any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Remarks are to be limited to not more than 5 minutes per speaker. Do you have any speakers?
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak in front of you. My name is Maria Teresa Diaz, and I represent a founding member and an active member of the nonprofit organization that is in charge of keeping, restoring, preserving the landmark of Los Alamitos, St. Isidore Historical Plaza. Our mission has been, it started in 1999, and we're still working towards it. We work without stopping to make this happen. I would like to say first that we're not anymore under the Diocese of Orange, that a lady, a benefactor, bought the mortgage in much better terms. And we call her our guardian angel, Florisa Martinez. And that means that we have now more time to get the monies to pay for that property. And in order to do that, we are constantly having fundraisers. And the next biggest fundraiser of this year is called Tango Argentino, Argentinian tango. And we're going to have a show and a dinner, everything Argentinian style. We're going to have a live show, and it's wonderful. And I brought flyers for everybody to see, and I would like to have your cooperation and to see your faces there that night, at least some of you who can. I've been very lucky, and as well as all of us members of this organization, because we have always had the backing of this city. And I can name some people that have been really close to us, and without them, we wouldn't be here. I'm telling you that. And you're sitting next to one. And another person right there, Steve Mendoza. So I am very, very happy to announce this. Last year, we had another big fiesta, and it was called Cuban Nostalgia. We had 311 people with Cuban salsa music and a Cuban dinner. We want to just expand to just other than, the same, but we want to touch every different country and their culture. So the fiesta, the Tango Argentino dinner show, will be Saturday, July 15th from 5 to 10 under the stars in the patio of St. Isidore Historical Plaza. And the doors open at 5 o'clock, and then the show starts at, the dinner is from 6 to 7, and then the show from 7 to 10. So thank you very much for letting me speak, and I hope to see you there. I'm going to have flyers, and I would like to know where I could place the flyers for people who are interested, because everything is here, everything that you need to know and more. So, yes, and she has the flyers. So thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, and good evening, council members. If you remember me, my name is David Rael, Brooke, and I am the owner of CrossFit Los Alamitos, a local business here off Portal Drive. In 2015, there was an issue that was raised with a demising wall, a non-load-bearing wall that was removed between two spaces that I'm leasing currently. And the issue was heard by the Planning Commission, and the long and short of it was that they said their intent, it seemed to me, that was to give me to the end of my lease. In that meeting, they asked me when the end of my lease was, and I said it was sometime in August of 2017, which we're coming up on right now. But I failed to realize that when we acquired the other space, the other unit, that we actually re-signed a lease until 2019. So if I have to put the wall back up now, it's going to come at a great expense to my business, because staff's requiring me to get engineered plans, contractor plans for basically a wall of drywall and 2x6s to be put up. So all in all, with all those cost of plans, which is over $4,000, plus the cost of the materials and the building, it's going to put me out over $15,000 and probably close my business down right now because of the cost. It's just too much for me to incur right now. Not to mention, if the wall goes up, then I now am stuck with two leases. One space I cannot use until 2019, so I'm required to pay for my lease. and now I'm going to be stuck with a space that I cannot use. So I wrote you guys a letter. I handed it off on Thursday, and you guys probably got it. I doubt you had a chance to read it. I hope you guys do. My request is that you guys allow the Planning Commission to see that lease, and to know that was signed before that meeting that took place, and that I am stuck in that lease. My property management company, who are the ones that removed the wall, are not taking responsibility. They're putting the onus on me, even though if they had got a permit to begin with, we never would be in this situation, because staff probably would have denied it at that point. But they're putting the onus on me. So I'm asking you guys to either kick it back to the Planning Commission to clarify what their intent of their decision was, if it is in fact to give me to the end of my lease, which gives me until 2019. I've tried to find new space in that time since I've been here in 2015. Unfortunately, the way the general plan is set out, businesses such as mine are only allowed in a very small 2-block area, about 10 to 15 addresses, none of which have been available in the time that I've been here and been open for business. There's tons of spaces in the warehouse and Plan Light Industrial area that are available for leasing, but unfortunately, because of the general plan, the way it's set out now, I cannot be there. The business is similar to mine, swim schools, gyms. We've put in goodwill for the last however long we've all been here. I've been here for over 5 years, and show that we are able to operate in these areas safely without issue. I don't think there's been one issue since we've been open. So I think that with your guys' kicking this back to them, and if they give me to the end of my lease, my hope is that in those next 2 years, that I know I'm not going to be able to stay there, because that wall's going to have to go back up when my lease is over. So I'm not going to be able to stay there, but my hope is to get together with other businesses in the city to hopefully make some amendments to that general plan to allow businesses like mine, like the swim schools, who want to expand, try to make an amendment to that general plan if we all work together, and that's my hope. So again, if you have any questions, you have my letter, and it should have my contact info, so thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Swan, and I'm an outreach specialist for Alzheimer's Orange County. And I got involved with this organization because my grandmother died of Alzheimer's. And I know many families who have been touched by dementia and Alzheimer's as well. And that's why I'm here to invite everyone in this room today to our 2017 Walk for Alzheimer's. Since 1982, Alzheimer's Orange County has been the county's largest nonprofit organization dedicated to providing free education, support, and advocacy for families living with memory loss. The Walk for ALZ is the county's largest community event to raise awareness and funds for this effort. Each year, over 10,000 people participate in our Walk for ALZ, uniting the entire community, including family, friends, coworkers, elected officials, social groups, and more in the fight against dementia. This fall, all 3 walks are back, and the one closest to Los Alamitos is in Huntington Beach on October 28th, a Saturday. There's no fee to register, and I invite everyone to participate in fundraising to support our local work, because 100% of the proceeds will go back to communities in Orange County. As the county's 3rd leading cause of death, more than 84,000 Orange County residents are living with dementia, a number that will triple by 2025. And that's why I'm here asking for everyone's help today. You can register by going onto our website or calling our helpline, and I have folders here with thorough information on our organization and the walk for you to go over. And I thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm George Brigham, managing partner of the Brigham and Corporate Plaza over on Brigham and Drive. I'd like to request that item M on the consent calendar be pulled for discussion, please.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll close oral communications and move over to council announcements. Starting with you, Richard.
I get to mention first that I went to Sunburst's
Yes.
graduation, beat the parade. This actually is very important meeting in the future of Los Alamitos, both for some items that will be discussed here tonight and some upcoming hearings. One by the OCTA on the 29th of June that will be held next door, that will talk about the redevelopment of the 605 off-ramp. And also the Olson Company will be presenting their new plans up by the old Cottonwood Church at 5:30 the same day. It's only 2 blocks away. You can make both, I think, if you hurry. But, you know, it's going to be, we're at a very important stage of the city where we are going to decide really what future development in the city is going to look like. And I encourage everyone to get involved or speak to us, whatever involvement you want to take. But let's hear from you on this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you. I also attended the Sunburst Youth Academy's graduation and high school graduation, but I hope the mayor will elaborate. And then the other thing, I went to the Orange County Vector and Mosquito Control Board of Trustees meeting, and right now, I just saw a press release where we had the first outbreak of West Nile virus in, I think it was
Long Beach.
Brea.
Long Beach.
Does Long Beach has it too?
Heard it coming over.
So, folks, if you have standing water, please just dump it out and then wear a insect repellent. The other thing I was going to announce, what was it? It slips my mind. So I'll have to pass.
You want my notes? Where'd you go? You want my notes?
No, okay. No, I'll just go ahead and pass it to you. Thank you.
Okay. Josh?
Great. I also attended the Sunburst Youth Academy graduation. Congratulations to those cadets and the great, powerful stories that they brought. And I know Mayor Hasselbrink will have a more update on that one up there. Attended Los Alamitos Chamber of Commerce breakfast. Stopped by the groundbreaking for the new Precious Life shelter. And also through the Westcom board, which represents the city, we approved the budget, so that was a big item that we were able to get through. I attended the Orange County Fire Authority's open house with my family. It was a wonderful event. The facility is absolutely amazing in Irvine. And attended the first of Civic Center ad hoc committees, and I look forward to providing a further update at our next meeting for additional items that come. I wanted to ask one item for staff, and that is regarding what the gentleman from CrossFit Los Alamitos was brought up, and what is the mechanism that would be to bring back an item to either the Planning Commission or to the City Council regarding his, since it's currently decided upon?
I'm going to also defer to the attorney on this, but I think we can bring an item back for council discussion at a future meeting if that is the will of the council to put an item on regarding this.
Right. I mean, the council cannot make any decision and should not comment on anything that's brought up from the audience that's not on the agenda. As far as getting reconsideration, Stephen, I think there's a process for applying for reconsideration, or I'm going to defer to Stephen for that.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look at the code and see what kind of reconsideration after the appeals process is passed and the call for review time is passed. Both of those windows are long gone. That happened almost 2 years ago. So I'll have to take a look in the code and dive into it a little deeper.
Appreciate the informational updates. Thank you.
Troy?
Yeah, a couple things. Just wanted to ask staff to give just a really quick update and maybe even a staff report on the next City Council agenda for the Coyote Creek bike path that we've been so waiting for the last about 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. So anybody in the community, if you get a chance, go from here to the beach behind Oak Middle School, get on the bike trail, and we have about, 2 miles of new bike path out there that goes, and then the park that's behind Oak Middle School. So we've really done a lot from the council and staff and the Rivers and Mountains Conservancy. And again, Brett, if you wouldn't mind, if I can get another person to support, I'd really like to get an update to the community, have pictures and show what has happened out there. It's really nice. Tonight is also another event going on in the community, which is at the high school. And so tonight, just to keep everybody informed, is the high school is doing their open house as they're starting to consider potentially kicking off another bond for the school district. If you remember, in 2010, they had Measure K. It was about a little over $100 million. They retrofitted all the schools. What they're trying to get feedback from the community, and I would encourage you to get involved in that process as they're looking at potentially going for another probably over $100 million, but specifically for the high school. Up here, we're not, supporting it or anything or opposing it. We're just making you aware that this is something that's pretty significant in the community, and it affects all of us. So we just want to make sure. And unfortunately, it was tonight, or probably all of us up here would be over at the school district at the school board discussion. Had an opportunity to go to the Memorial Day at Forest Lawn in Cypress to recognize the veterans that had given the ultimate sacrifice. I just want to thank Forest Lawn and Cypress for just every year what a great event that is, to take a few minutes and to really reflect on, especially with what's going on in the world, and being a Navy vet myself, to take a few moments to think about all the people that do so much for our country and have done so much and given the ultimate sacrifice. Lastly, with Casa Youth Shelter, Josh and I are on the Casa Youth Shelter board as chief, and we wanted to welcome Amy Lakin to the community. Amy Lakin has taken over as the executive director of Casa Youth Shelter. So if you know a lot of the history there, big shoes to fill. She's going to be a great addition to the community. And we had a welcome aboard dinner with her last week, and I would just encourage anybody, if you get an opportunity, to stop by the Casa Youth Shelter, find out what it's about over there, and have an opportunity to go in and meet one of our newest community leaders, Amy Lakin. So with that, Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I did attend the Police Appreciation Lunch. Once again, the Chamber of Commerce did a terrific job of honoring some of our finest police officers and also our residents that just take ownership in keeping our city safe. So I want to thank them for that. I attended the Mayor's Breakfast at the OC Fair. I did give Wendy discount tickets. We have lots of those available for anybody that wants to come pick them up. I'm assuming they'll be over at the Rec Center and at City Hall. Los Alamitos Day is August 2nd. We will be doing the national anthem, not me personally, but we will be raising the flag at noon and opening up the fair as part of Los Alamitos Day. So if you can join us, it's a great day to be proud of our city. I did attend the bike safety event over at Little Cottonwood. This was part of the new area command, and what a great event. Kids were over getting their bikes registered, getting helmets, getting safety demonstrations. There was music, hot dogs, and chips, and I hope that we can roll this out to more local parks over to Lewis and possibly the community center here. And it was a great event for the kids, and I thank you very much for that. Did attend the Memorial Day ceremony at Forest Lawn. Was proud to sit next to Mayor Pro Tem as he stood when the Navy song played. That was quite impressive. He now knows which one that is, so that was all good. That was good. Attended the Taste of Precious Life Santa Maria Barbecue at St. Isidora's. Ate to our heart's delight. Attended the Sunburst Youth Academy graduation, and this year had the thrill of sitting on stage and just watching the energy with these kids. They're on a good track, and we're very excited to watch them as they embark on their new future. That same day, with traffic gods being on my side, I was able to get up to Camp Roberts in about 3 hours and 15 minutes. You didn't hear that from me. To watch Joel Armstrong, who used to be the head of Sunburst Youth Academy down here, take a change of command, which is huge for him. He's going to be taking a number of soldiers over for a 10-month deployment to Jordan at the end of this year. So our thoughts and prayers are with them. It's a scary part of the world, and but I was very proud to represent Los Alamitos and watch him as he moves on in his military career. I was able to attend the Los Al High School 2017 graduation. This time set on stage. I wasn't a parent. I just got to watch. And once again, the energy there for those 850 kids and where they're going to be going was just spectacular. And I want to thank the school for allowing me to do that. I just wanted to announce some of the upcoming events. This Saturday starts our Moving the Park series. Saturday at Laurel Park. The opening band is an 80s band called Centerfold, followed by Secret Life of Pets. The band starts at 6:30 and the movie starts at dusk. And then also Councilman Murphy talked about the OCTA town hall meeting. Please attend that. It's going to affect right outside here and what's going to be happening in the future. And there's some significant changes that they're going to be presenting. And also the 4th of July Spectacular, that's going to be coming up obviously on the 4th of July. Gates open at 4 o'clock. I think official opening ceremony start at 7:45 And then obviously the fireworks at dark. This is an amazing event, lots and lots of people there, and what a cool way to celebrate our nation's independence by sitting on an active military base with soldiers all around us, and it's a great event. So if you can, please come out and join us. And with that, we'll move on to items from the city manager.
Stephen, can you just give a brief update or preview of what we'll put on the agenda if the council wants in the next meeting, the bike path? Just update on the paving of it. Teresa?
Sure. The bike path is completed. It's the segment in Los Alamitos that travels south to the Seal Beach border and north to the Long Beach border. It's 2 lanes going both ways, and you'll notice that we didn't just do a Band-Aid overlay. We actually tore all the blacktop out and started from scratch. It took a little while. We apologize for that, but these trucks didn't have anywhere to circulate. They could only back up slowly on the little service road in order to repave it. We're very happy with how it's turned out. Corey and I are working on a grand reopening for July, the day of your next July council meeting. So that day we'll actually do a ceremony out there. But with that, we're very excited. A lot of good input and a lot of great feedback from the community about that project. And I have to really thank Dave and his team and Jason and his team for helping out manage the grant as well. Wasn't easy. And of course, Councilmember Edgar, our cheerleader at the funding source. So we really do appreciate that.
Thank you. And then Corey, can you just briefly touch a little bit more on 4th of July?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. The 4th of July is taking place. Same location as the past couple of years. We're going to be out on the Army Airfield. The event is again co-produced and sponsored by the cities of Los Alamitos, Cypress, Seal Beach, and the community of Rossmore. We definitely thank all of our partners and all of our sponsors for allowing it to happen again this year. Like the mayor said, the event starts at 4 o'clock. Definitely encourage people to take their time and get on the base slowly and carefully and safely. Again, we'll be parking out on the tarmac. There'll be no charge for parking for this year. There'll be bands throughout the day, starting at 4 o'clock up until the 9 o'clock hour when the fireworks show will take place. All the dignitaries are invited to be there for the formal kickoff about 7:45, and then the large orchestra band by the military will be on between 8 and 9. We got about 15 food vendors that'll be out there, so definitely encourage people to come hungry, and just remind people that getting off of the installation through 2 exits is time consuming, so please just bring your patience, take your time getting off. We've also got, we get about 15,000 people that come out for the event. So we definitely encourage people to just drive carefully, drive slowly, and bring their patients with them. And we anticipate it taking anywhere between 15 minutes to an hour to get off the installation. But we're very, very excited for another year. And this is going to be our 30th annual. So we're excited to celebrate the 30th annual this year. Oh, if I may, I'm sorry. We also got word from the military that we're anticipating 4 F-15 fighter jets to be flying over and actually landing on the 4th of July. They're flying over Dodger Stadium that evening and should be landing anywhere between 6 and 6:30. So definitely notification to the residents to expect the. Apparently they fly over once to kind of get their bearings, and then will land the second time they fly around. So should be really exciting. Kind of a neat thing that we haven't had in several years here for the 4th of July, but. A neat thing to have on the 4th of July this year. So just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of the noise.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to warrants. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
Second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Kusamoto?
Aye.
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Edgar?
Aye.
Mayor Hasselbrink?
Aye. And as a request, we're going to be moving up the public hearing item B and C up in front of the consent calendar. So we can move over to that right now. And starting with item B, this is the call for review, a planning commission decision, consideration of a 5-unit residential condo development at 4071 Farquhar. And I'm going to go ahead and open it up for public hearing right now. Is there any public comments?
Good evening, Mayor Hasselbrink, members of the City Council. My name is Nick Zamvakelis. I'm actually the owner and developer of the neighboring property, which is 4061 Farquhar. Mr. Keski, who's the owner of 4071 Farquhar, is out of town. But in that, we are developing both properties with the same plans. They're pretty much identical, just one is a mirror image of the other. Mr. Keski asked that I be here in his stead. So addressing the 4071 property and the 4061 property, they're identical again, mirror images. So if I may, I'd like to give you a little history of how we got here to this review. At the April 26th Planning Commission meeting, we presented both of these projects, the 4061 and 4071 Farquhar, and a separate project that's, we'll call it a sister project at 3751 Farquhar. At that meeting, there were a few points brought out about the design of these two projects we're addressing tonight at 4061, 4071 by a couple of the planning commissioners. And after some discussion and clarification, the Planning Commission voted and approved these two projects, the 4071 and 4061. As we got on to discuss the project at 3751 Farquhar, the sister project, there was a similar issues raised or questions raised, but there was at least one issue that was raised that was significant enough that there was some uncertainty, so we chose to continue the Planning Commission meeting on that property till the next meeting, which was on May 24th. At that time, several additional issues that were not presented or raised at the earlier meeting in April were raised by one of the planning commissioners. In that those issues were not raised, we were really not prepared, and knowing what the additional questions that were being raised, we were not prepared to present solutions to those potential issues. So we went through. I asked that we be given all of the potential issues on that project, which I'm bringing this all up because that project being so similar to these two, any issues that are on one project really may apply to all three. So I'm trying to be thorough and tell you that whatever we solve, we'll solve on all three projects. So that project was continued again. Through all this time, we've continued to work actively with planning staff over the counter, and always trying to meet or exceed all planning and municipal codes. And it's never been nor will ever be our intent to trick planning commission, planning staff, city council, or anybody else to put something in our designs that are not complying with the intent of the planning code. As many of us know and are familiar with the planning code, there's a lot of its inconsistencies in the planning code, and the danger we face is citing individual code fragments for the purpose, whether it's intentional or non-intentional, of weaponizing the planning code. And surely that's not in the best interest of either the city government, the residences and residents of the city, and certainly not people like myself and Mr. Keski. We love this city. We've been living here, working here, developing here. I have business here. My wife has business here for many, many years. Our projects continue to bring additional tax revenue, raise property values in the city, increase more ownership units, and really do give a big benefit to the city, we feel. At tonight's meeting, we stand ready to hand you over some design changes that we could potentially implement, given that you all have any specific concerns over the property. I don't yet know what you all want to review about this project. So I have that the design drawings with me. We can, if we choose to take a look at those for you all, depending on what your concerns are, I can then hand them out and summarize the changes that are incorporated in those drawings. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we'll bring it back up here. Warren, do you want to start?
Oh, sure. Thank you very much for being here. I guess this is really my kind of question to call for review. And when I saw the project, my first reaction was there's not enough parking. And then kind of digging into it a little bit further, I wanted to see kind of the details. So if I may, with the city manager, probably then through you to the community development director, is that kind of how we'll go? So if I may direct you to the conditions, Stephen, on attachment 5. I want to kind of go through these things so I get clarity. And as the developer said, this is not to weaponize the code in any way. But I think, like any kind of design, right, there's always going to be compromises based on the requirements and the constraints. So it's a challenge, and there's no doubt that it is. But I'm really in my kind of nerd space when I go through this kind of stuff. I went through all the drawings, and I went through the conditions, basically the set of requirements. So if we can, Stephen. One thing, I guess, as we go through there, condition 8, I'm kind of curious as to the Quimby fee.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get to this number?
It's actually adopted by the city council quite a few years ago, and it's based on the number of units produced. For both single family,
But okay, so
multifamily rate.
when I go to our website, I look at the planning, I look at the planning fees, and on the fee schedule, this is actually double the number that's on that fee schedule. I mean, it's exactly double. So I'm just wondering how you get there, because I don't understand the math behind it. So that's a question. You don't have to answer it. You don't have to answer it now, but that'll be something I would certainly like an answer for, because the way I read the fee schedule, it should be 13,412. So certainly wouldn't want to overcharge a developer on their Quimby fees. Let's see, lighting standards on page 4 of 9. I don't understand the significance of number 29.
Number 29, the ground floor room labeled?
Yes.
The ground floor room labeled as a study/den in units 1, 2, 3, and 4 shall not have a closet installed and shall not be considered as a bedroom.
Okay.
This requirement shall be included in the CC&Rs.
But isn't that kind of in direct conflict with the accessory dwelling unit law that passed and is enforced as of this year? So is this something that's really not enforceable? Because as I read the accessory dwelling unit law, we can't have that kind of language in here, as I understand and interpret it. And so I guess to city attorney, can we enact regulations and requirements that are in direct conflict with state law?
No, we can't enact regulations that are directly in conflict. I'm not sure that this regulation has anything to do with that law, though.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
This is not an I don't think we're talking about an accessory dwelling, but.
Have you read the accessory dwelling unit law?
Yes. Okay,
and then it goes on to say one can actually partition off a section of one's house, rent it out, don't have to provide kitchens, facilities. You can actually rent it out because of the housing, whatever, the need for additional housing. So it seems to me that this would be in direct conflict with that, and it would not be, I think, wise for us to proceed on with it. Next page, page 5. So can you tell me on 34D, on the CC&Rs?
Mm-hmm.
To me, the last sentence in there, it's kind of vague. So what constitutes overhang? On trees, again, if I'm a homeowner or an association member, and the tree's hanging, 18 feet or whatever, it doesn't. To me, it's like, what's the number? I'm looking for a number certain, not a. I guess do not block. Is there a requirement?
No, this isn't a legal requirement. It's a condition we place that enforces the CC&Rs to address the issue over and above, so it doesn't become a code enforcement issue later.
A code enforcement, but there is no code, you just said.
Well, no. Many times associations look to code enforcement to enforce their laws.
Say that again?
Associations and condominium complexes, they'll look to the city to enforce their own bylaws. This person's violating our CC&Rs. Is it a violation of the code? What can you do about it? and they like to pit cities against associations, so the association isn't paying their attorney to enforce things on the association. So here we are, we're making sure that it includes the scheduling of maintenance and also including tree overhangs that do not block or hinder any vehicles, such as truss traffic, fire trucks, and trucks maneuvering around the private driveway. It's another enforcement tool, making the CC&Rs, therefore the association, responsible for maintenance on the property and not thwarting it off to the general taxpayers.
But it seems like what you just described is this was kind of contrary. That we're imposing something that's not in code that we're going to go and enforce.
Yeah,
Did
we
I
don't
understand it.
We can enforce things on an association that aren't necessarily code issues, above and beyond code.
Okay.
We want them to maintain their property, keep trees clear,
Okay.
and this is how we enforce it.
And but again, so to me, this is to be enforceable. It should have a number, right? Is it 10 feet? Is it 15 feet on the overhang? So that's kind of what, again, if we're going to be in this business of enforcing an association's requirements, it becomes a very subjective matter. And then I guess what's even slippery in terms of if there's no code that you can point to, then I don't know that we should be in that game. Okay, but there is no number in your.
No, it's one of those things where you know when something's blocking something.
No, something's blocking something. Okay.
Yeah, to ensure that it does not block or hinder vehicles.
Okay. Okay. The other one on the page 6 of 9, the trash enclosure will hold 2 dumpsters, standard dumpsters, one for solid waste, one for recycling.
Mhm.
So in the site plan, I did not see 2.
No, you only see one because with the contract that we have with our current trash hauler, they don't have separate bins. They have one bin and it's taken to a MRF where they divvy it up at the MRF. That's through our current Republic services. So most commercial properties and also apartments that have the 1 3-yard bin service, the blue bins, the large ones that go over the truck, those are one bin.
Single stream basically.
Single stream.
Okay,
And
so-
then there are apartments who opt out of that and they go for well, we call them smaller, but they're 96-gallon containers, and they'll have 3 of those that have separation.
Okay. So, but yet in our code, 17.16.110 requires a separate trash or a separate recycling dumpster.
Mhm.
5 to 15.
From 5 by 8.
Well, no, I'm sorry. For multi-family dwelling, whatever sites of
Mhm.
5 to 15 units requires one
Recycling.
recycled dumpster.
Correct. And we don't have a system or a contract with an outside
I know what you
firm.
said, but again, so it's an exception to the code. If our code
well,
requires
I think the exception is the city doesn't have a contract that provides for separate services and separate bins for commercial activity. So no one could meet that requirement because that other bin would never be touched.
So there are no, okay, so are there any units that have 2 bins, a separate one for recycling, one separate one for trash?
Not one that has a 3-yard contract, no.
I'm sorry, say that again, a 3-yard.
The 3-yard bin contracts, if they have an agreement with the trash hauler for the large blue 3-yard bins, no, they do not have separate bins for recycling.
So
It's source separated
okay.
at the
so
site.
what you're saying, then we have a section of code that really we don't enforce.
Correct. Yeah.
So, okay, so that's kind of interesting. Okay, and let's see. I guess the other question, sort of in general then, I want to understand, for clarification, the documents up here on the easel,
Mhm.
what constitutes the site plan? The entire 10 pages or just page 1?
Page 1,
Is the site plan?
yeah.
And then-
Others are elevations, cross-sections.
Okay, so then in going through page 1, I have difficulty coming up with the numbers that make it fit, and I think that goes back to what the developer had said, in terms of not trying to sneak anything by, but certainly trying to understand it also. It seems like, well, ultimately there's not enough parking when you look at the
the bedroom count, or the room that could be used as a bedroom, when you look at 17.26.040, which is the parking requirement, it's kind of clear as to what the requirements are. So each unit, by my reckoning, has 2 covered spaces and one other space, because half space gets rounded up to a second one. If this were an apartment building, one owner with tenants, I can see the argument for the half space aggregating those, so where you would come up with the number of 13. But I guess the question is, and maybe the developer can answer, what happens to the outside spaces? Who owns those?
The code reads, it's in regards to that half space, you don't round up each half space. You total the number of spaces and then round up. Otherwise, you'd have to have the 10 spaces in the parking garages plus another half space times 5, another 5 spaces.
Right.
That's not what the code says.
Well, that's an interpretation of the code,
No,
right?
it says a half a space for each additional bedroom. So you take the complete bedroom count of the whole project and tally up the number of spaces you need. And we do have enough spaces. Now, if you're going to make the interpretation that the room downstairs that our architect wrote on its study is a habitable bedroom, we're prepared with other drawings, and we're totally pleased to make the change that becomes a laundry/mudroom. Totally fine with us. It's actually a nicer design, a little bit more usable perhaps. And we've also, in some of the drawings we have here, we've actually reduced the massing of the buildings and cut down some of the square footage. So we've actually made some changes that make the project a little bit nicer, a little bit more spacious for backup space, turning radius, getting rid of rooms that could be interpreted as bedrooms, and a couple of other changes. So I'm prepared to address any of your other further concerns.
Okay, so, but I did ask, with respect to the 3 outside spaces, what are they, guest parking?
They're non-designated spaces.
Okay, and they're owned by the association?
They're owned by all the people in the complex can use them.
Okay.
They're supposed to park 2 cars in the garage, and that's in the CC&Rs, because we also have exterior storage space in the garage so that they can theoretically store their stuff outside of where they park their cars. And the CC&Rs and all the projects we've done state the owner's vehicle shall be stored in the garages. Now, obviously, if people have 5 cars, we can't, nobody in the city can enforce that. You can't pass a law that says you can't have 5 cars. We're not in the business here of trying to circumvent ownership of units by people with more cars by saying, well, gee, there's not enough parking, so you can't buy a unit. They'll have to find somewhere else to park their car. Yes, they could park in a guest spot, and they could say, well, I have 3 cars, I'm parking 1 in a guest spot, and it'd be up to the association, which are the homeowners, to decide whether or not to enforce it or make a problem for that person that has that extra car.
Got it, okay, thank you, okay. And then I think you said that on some potentially different plans than what we have here, you've shrunk the footprint?
What we did is on buildings 2 and 3, we reduced our cantilever that's on the, say, east or west side. On the east side of our property, which is 406-1, and on the west side of Mr. Keski's property, which is 407-1. We had a 4-foot cantilever. We reduced to about 2 foot.
So, but it does not alter the footprint, which is really what we're looking at on the site plan.
Doesn't alter the footprint.
Okay.
It alters the projection of the house down to the ground.
Understand that.
Reduces the massing, reduced our square footage. We got rid of a space that was called a loft, and we also redesigned the space that was called a study, and now it's called a laundry room.
Okay, but right now, I think the thing that gets that received the approval by the Planning Commission is sheet 1 of both projects.
Is this, yeah.
Yeah, sheet
what
1.
you see
okay.
here.
Okay, and then I guess the other part on sheet 1, can you explain when you have the site area? I don't understand the math there. And if you maybe go to it, but you've got building A, building B, building C with a certain square footage, but then you have private yard of 500 square feet. When you tally it up in the other one, it's 1,045. So I don't understand how you go from 1,045 of private open space to 500 on the private yard on your drawing.
Private open space is 100 square feet per unit. That's a requirement in the planning code. There's a total of much more
But when you're doing side area, isn't this kind of based on your footprint on the site area, or
On site area?
Well, if maybe I can direct your attention over there. When you look at the site area starts off at 52 by 180.
Yes.
And then you go through each one. And does that not represent the actual footprint of each structure and driveway and landscape?
Well, the building A, building B, building C is the
Footprint. The footprint. Okay.
Gives you the lot coverage.
Understand?
Okay. And then the driveway, of course, is all the concrete. The walkways are the walkways. Private yard is 500 square feet per unit, and in the 1,432 square feet is any additional landscape and open space that's not dedicated.
But this is where I guess I understand what you're saying. 500 is the requirement, right?
We have more, but yeah.
Yeah, so you have more. So should this not be a bigger number?
Which number?
500. Your actual number is double.
Right.
1,045.
It doesn't affect the lot coverage.
It doesn't affect the lot coverage. I mean.
No, because if you increase the 500, Ron, can you help out? This is your math. Did you change the math in the new site plan?
We revised the site plan with the new numbers.
Okay. What are the new numbers?
It's a little more clear maybe in the new site plan.
Yeah. What are the new numbers? You just read them off. That's fine for me.
Oh, sure. So right now, its buildings are 3,210 square feet, which is 34.2%. Driveway is 3,685 square feet, which encompasses 39.4% of the lot. Landscape is 1,489 square feet at 15.9% of the lot. Walkways is 576 square feet, which is 6.2% of the lot. And now our private space on grade, this is on the ground, because one of the units ended up with a private deck instead of the ground level area, is now 400 square feet for 4.3%. Those percentages add up to 100% and the 9,360 square feet for the lot.
And then the on-ground, I guess the on-grade private open space?
It's in there. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
The on-grade private open space is concrete slab?
In the front two units, it's a concrete patio.
Okay.
In the very back two units, it's a combination of concrete patio and some landscaping.
Okay.
I don't know if maybe you didn't. We just finished a project very similar to this over on Howard.
Okay.
At 3691 Howard, and you can kind of see the resemblance of the layout of this that we did, and we tweaked the design a little bit based on what we learned from that project in terms of aesthetics and how we like how it feels, and now we've tweaked it again to make it even better. You're welcome to come over and look at that project. You can see how we incorporated some kind of Zen-looking fences with some nice wood and some landscape areas and a patio. I think it actually came out really nice.
So, so on that one, I have the site plan here. You're bookkeeping, like say the private open space as 751 square feet.
Which one is that?
The Howard.
Oh, okay.
So it just seems to me you would be doing the same thing, 500 square feet there as well, correct?
Well, the issue came up in that some of the planning commissioners felt that if you show more private open space than a 10 by 10 area, the argument was, well, the planning code says no dimension less than 10 feet in a private open space. But what's required, but given that if there's no dimension less than 10 feet, is it a triangle with 3 sides, 10 feet each side? Is it a square? Is it a circle where the diameter is 10 feet? What is the shape, right? So enforcing and saying and standing on that piece of code and saying no dimension less than 10 feet, does that mean you can't have a 10 by 10 private space and then give a homeowner the entire side setback of 5 feet by 20 feet, another 100 square feet? It's not a 10-foot dimension, but it's an addition to the 10 by 10 area that they enjoy as a private open space per the code. If I give them more, they can use it for something else. but I don't need to count it in my private open space calculation.
But it goes towards the lot coverage, right? So everything in the site plan adds up to your 9,360.
That's right.
Okay. And I guess I will disagree with when you add this up. You're showing right here in the next column over your private open space is 1,045, and it may be a different number now because of however you calculated it. But
You're talking about Howard.
I'm talking about 4071.
Oh, okay.
Right. When you tally it all up, your 500 is the wrong number. Is in my view, because
okay.
it should be 1,045, because that is a true representation of your private open
More
space.
private open space.
So
Well, we can revise those numbers to make them make better sense, I guess.
yeah, because I'm looking at it, thinking, where'd you get 500? And I didn't see it. That's
Okay.
what I'm going through with my scale
I
and
understand.
my markers, and
We also made an attempt on these newer plans to provide a blow-up of all the private open spaces and all the trash enclosure areas to make the dimensions very, very clear.
yeah. And then on your the back unit, is it C?
I don't know what we called it on this one. The back unit, the standalone unit.
Yeah, building C, and then the back. Oh, okay, building B, the center building with the back side, unit 4, and then building C with unit 5. How do pedestrians safely get back there from the street, from Farquhar?
They walk down the side walkway and then walk through the driveway area and go around building B to back to.
But now on your Howard project, they walk straight back along the property line. I'm looking at the site plan here.
It's a choice of one or the other.
Okay, but it seems to me it's not prudent to mix pedestrians where there's a driveway. That's just, I think.
There's many other projects in the city that were built that way, apartment units, all kinds of units that are built that way. When you park at the market, do you not walk through the parking lot to get to the market?
No, I understand.
So saying that it's unsafe, I think is an excessive term, given that there's only 5 homes there. The traffic is going to go very, very slowly because it's only you living there. And you're not talking about a lot of people going in and out all the time. Not only that, if you're a visitor, you may walk that way, but any homeowner is going to drive in and should be parking in their garage, walking direct access to their unit, and going upstairs and enjoying their home.
Understand. Okay. And then, Stephen, I had asked for a copy of the memo that you referenced in the meeting minutes.
Mhm.
I did not see it, so is it, can you provide that to us?
That memo was only referenced in that meeting, wasn't introduced in that meeting.
Understand.
It was sent to the commissioners 2 days after the meeting at their request, and they used it during the May meeting. But we have provided the regulation 3.1 via email today, I believe,
Oh, I didn't see it.
to all the
so
city council members. It's an internal memo.
Pardon me? Was it? Oh, I didn't see it. I
Yeah, there's
looked-
a stack of them out there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we made it available to council this morning.
Okay. Apologize, I did not see it, so. Okay, so this is with respect to definition of a bedroom. So can you explain this one, Steve?
Sure. Tom and I deal with different people at the counter at different times, and many people will ask questions about bedroom studies, dens, similars. They come up with very creative language for things that we might consider a bedroom, hence the discussion tonight. So we were challenged in giving the consistent answer among ourselves. So how does Tom and I get on the same page? Well, let's do a little bit of research, see what other cities are doing for things called dens, and at least we'll be consistent. Ultimately, any decision goes to the Planning Commission, so it's not a policy of the Planning Commission, it's not even a city law. It's just so Tom and I are at the same page when we're giving information out on the counter. And it's also a way to remember things when a code change comes up. It's a way to memorialize that. The code's a little confusing. Let's not forget this item when we do a code change. This might be a good thing to bring up. And since we had it in forecast to do a zoning code update, we started making sure that we were memorializing these things so we didn't forget about them.
Okay.
And in the meantime, this is what we told developers about how we're going to treat parking. That's just we, not the commission, not the city council, but us.
I mean, so you get it, how are you going to treat parking?
Yeah, we're going to, what you define a bedroom as is directly correlated to how many parking spaces some place has.
but our code says or den or steady.
Or readily, the key word in there is readily.
So
And that's the hard part for us,
Yeah,
readily.
So let me ask this. So you chose the city of Davis.
Yeah.
But you didn't look locally and see like the 70 square foot for the County of Orange, or the Cypress definition. You didn't use any of those.
No, we didn't. We just wanted to find something that that was readily available, that had the same confusion that ours did.
So do you know how many municipalities use this definition?
No.
3. Sacramento County, Sutter County, and Davis. So I guess I'm asking, why pick Davis's and why not use a local municipality?
Oh, I'll check with Tom.
Okay, so if we can, Brett, have an answer as to why we chose Davis? Because it does seem like we have some, in terms of standards around here. The county has a 70 square foot definition, and certainly one can use turn anything into a bedroom, right? I mean, a living room,
the bathroom,
yeah,
dining room, yeah.
you put it, and so the real thing is, I think that we have these in place because we have a parking problem. We're gonna consider an agenda item up here because to empower the parking or the traffic commission to look at parking, because parking is a problem. It is a problem in the areas. So the reason that we have these interpretations, the reason why I think we don't have enough parking is because when you look at the interpretation, as I interpret it, right now, again, if this is an apartment building, single owner, no argument with your interpretation. Aggregate everything and be that as it may. But if I were in the market for a condominium and I saw it's a one-car garage, I'd ask, well, how many other parking spaces are deeded with the property? And that's my question, right? But you're saying they aren't going to be deeded with the property. The only parking that the owner will get are 2 spaces. So whether it's a 3-bedroom den, 4-bedroom with, it's going to be 2 parking spaces. That's what they're going to get.
Well,
right?
not quite. If it's a 4-bedroom unit, there is an additional parking spot that's allocated to that unit. If I'm not mistaken. Am I mistaken? Huh? That's right, yeah. So, in the case,
but don't you have any? Aren't some of these 4-bedroom?
There's
units?
one 4-bedroom unit.
And how many parking spaces does that bedroom get? 4-bedroom?
It gets 2.5, and given the 4th bedroom, it needs another half space. So a total of 3 bedrooms.
But they only have 2 that are deeded with the property.
Well, no. In our case, we'll have to have in the condo plan, which will accompany the final documentation for any owner, there will be a parking space deeded to that property.
So now you're down to 2
But the total parking spaces.
I understand, but so now you're down to 2 open spaces.
Right.
For the other.
Well, it's still
4.
an open space.
I understand.
The relevance is that the parking count is consistent with what the code requires.
I get that.
Okay.
I get that.
And not only that, but you're citing a parking issue in the city is I would argue is not being caused by new developments. It's caused by old developments that don't have enough parking, don't have enough garages, don't have any rules in place and CC&Rs and codes for apartments that the garages are packed full of stuff and none of the cars are parked in the garage. So the ones you ought to go after with code enforcement is the existing properties that have stuff. Go up and down the alley. People are working on their cars. They have junk in the garages. Nobody's parking in the garage.
I think a former
all
council
the
member.
properties I've built, and we've built a lot of them in the city. We love the city.
Yeah.
All of the CC&Rs have rules about parking. They're enforced. We have management companies that help enforce the rules. And I myself drive around the properties, and if I see something that looks really egregious,
But yeah,
offense, I will talk to those people.
Point taken. But a former city council member did propose what you're describing, and the reaction was not a very good one. So
Impossible to do.
Yeah, I know.
Impossible situation for you guys. I completely agree.
Yeah.
But we're providing all the parking that's asked for by the planning code, and we're enforcing it in CC&Rs. We're doing our part. We also take out the approach and provide more parking on the street. So there's no driveway and approach there that blocks parking. So we're improving things, not making it worse.
I understand. Okay. Well, I appreciate the feedback on that one. So with that, I think I'll reserve for other questions that may come up as a result of the discussion, but thank you for indulging me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Excuse me for just a second, because this is really in my mind, going to be one of the most important items that we discuss in the 5 years I've been up here. I hate for you guys to be the test case. It's just, we're on the cusp of answering a lot of questions of where the city of Los Alamitos is going to go. And for your information, I own and manage apartment buildings for a living, so you're not going to find a stronger property rights guy than myself. And it's very important that we are fair to the current owners and also clear to future developers as to what the law is. Also, we have 50 to 60-year-old buildings that are going to need to be rebuilt, which means that builders will need to make a profit in order to get those properties rebuilt. But this has to be balanced against the community's needs and desires for traffic control. The basic issue that's coming down here is you want to increase the bedroom count from 9 to a minimum of 16. We could debate the other 4 all night long.
They're not going to be in the final plans.
Okay, which, just from the staff point of view, Brett, it kind of bothers me that we're working with incomplete information. I mean,
No, sorry, the plans were complete. We're voluntarily making these proposed changes based on the input we got at the last Planning Commission meeting, which was a lengthy, heated argument, if you watch the video, all about our other project. So rather than continue to debate these issues, we're just saying, no problem. And ask Stephen, when we approach the planning staff at the city counter, we come in with sketches with my architect, with myself. Hey, what do you guys want? Do you see any problems? We're happy to fix it. Let's work together. Let's figure out the code. We don't just come in and say, hey, here's our project. Get it approved. We don't do that. So we've always been proactive in solving issues before they get to the public forum. Okay? So the plans are complete. Our review by the city staff was complete, and they recommended approval of all 3 projects.
Let me cut you off, please.
Okay.
I'm trying to ask Brett a question that you're answering.
I'm sorry.
Okay?
I'm passionate.
I understand, and if I was in your shoes, I would be too. And because you guys have a great reputation. Nobody's attacking
I understand.
anything like that, but it is a big question to this city where we're going to go in the future. So my point is that even though the gentleman disagrees that these are incomplete, by the very fact that they've been changed somewhere else, we don't have those changes in front of me. That's my definition of incomplete. Okay, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it in my mind that we're being asked to work with something that we haven't had seen or prepared. Like Warren, I had this thing spread out on my kitchen table because the only place that had enough room for the size of the plans as I tried to understand the code and everything else. Came up with many of the same questions. Now, they're answering some of these questions today as to, the loft and the study. But it's really an aside that I would prefer to be doing this with the final plans, okay? Let me go back. Okay, the basic issue is we're gonna go from 9 to 16 bedrooms, a 78% increase in the amount of people who live on that space. The question for the city, and that's why I encourage people to come to the Olson hearing and everything else that's gonna go on this week. These issues all intertwine, but we're looking at can we afford as a city to have a 78% increase in population and traffic in this area? I mean, we're setting the playbook for anybody who wants to do this. And if it's my understanding is correct, the property on Farquhar's are actually slightly smaller than on other streets in that area. They're not quite, the others are a little bit bigger, a little more square foot. So it'll be easier to get a project approved and stay within the code.
They vary in size.
Yeah, okay. Now, my disagreement with the Planning Commission is the Planning Commission, when I was watching it over the weekend, said, we can't do something about this. Well, to me, that's our job up here today, is to do something that guarantees that we aren't flooding the community it seems to me that this question is a bigger question than your plans, unfortunately, today. But we're going to need to answer it as a city. And if I could ask you as an aside, where are we, Brett, on the zoning issue?
The zoning code update, we have an estimated cost. It's not budgeted right now. It would come back. The plan is for staff to bring it back for consideration after we close our books, or closer to the time when we close our books in September of this year. Bring it back to the standing committee for consideration and take it to the city council. So it's somewhere in the range of $145,000 estimated cost. It's not included in the budget at this point.
Okay. Quite an expense. But we are going to have to get at a definition of a bedroom we agree upon. And then we're also, like my colleague, when I read the 2.5 requirement, I was wondering, why isn't that 3 also? You know, why the code says a half a bedroom? The other definition, I'm sorry, I can't put my hand on it right now. There were some regulations I read over the weekend on how math is done, rounded up or down. I remember it was 0.4 or above, it gets rounded up on some items. I'll try and find that. But I don't think the argument as to what is a bedroom is dead, and it needs to be discussed here as a group and then decided upon down the road, because, you know, like I said, a 78% increase in population per building, can we, is that really what we want to do? So I can listen to everybody else.
Madam Mayor, if I can interrupt, or are you finished?
Yes, sir.
If I can interrupt. I don't think we formally opened the public hearing. It's clear that this is part of the public hearing, and I'd just like the record to reflect that this is part of the public hearing. Nobody has left the room since we started the public discussion.
Okay. Yeah, I opened it for a public hearing.
She did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did open it for public hearing.
You did open it?
Oh,
You did
first
ask
thing.
for public comment.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have
I
gotten
was
up if
misled.
she didn't say
Yeah.
it was okay.
Thank you.
I got a text that misled me.
Oh, no worries.
I'm done.
You done? Josh?
So would the comment just quickly as a point of order, the saying that there's any additional comments before we close public hearing? Okay, just want to make sure. All right. I would echo my council members' comments, and I would just want to make a point. Thank you for being up here. I know it's not an easy situation to face a council member, and especially with the time and investment that it takes.
Not my first time.
Right, I can sense that. So I also too would say that if we had the final plans, because I think if it was framed with a laundry or mudroom, as you phrased it, it would have been a different conversation
Got 'em right
that we
here.
had.
Happy to give them to you.
So in terms of that, you basically we prepared them and presented to work with the plans that were there.
Let me just clear, I'm sorry to interrupt Councilmember Wilson, just on that topic, and Councilmember Murphy brought it up, the plans that the applicant has brought up tonight, have we received those?
Yeah, I wanted to make it very clear. Staff has never seen these new drawings. He actually asked us if we wanted them. We said no, we can't check them fast enough. The commission, it'll just confuse the city council. City council's acting upon drawings that were part of a planning commission review in April. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that we didn't secretly have another set of plans in our stead that you didn't have.
Mr. Mendoza, I'm not throwing any city in a situation. It was more of the applicant was up there. He first said, well, we can change this. And then he said, we just submit new plans. So I understand that there's probably been some confusion of their based on echoing of those comments. That being said, sir, just if it wasn't a mudroom on there, it would make a difference, because as we do look for a definition of a den, and we know it's ambiguous and it's interpreted by the director, not in mentioned code, it's hard to go as a guiding element. So in terms of that, when we look at parking, it is troublesome to say that we are going to do an increase. We're not going to have sufficient parking when we know that there is a shortage of housing and people are going to look at this as an opportunity to add an additional bedroom in there. Further, when we look at the conditions, and you talk about 34A and B, and we say, well, they are going to park inside the garage. At least in my definition, we say the ability to, and made available, it does appear that is not a clear indication that they will park cars in their garage. It's certainly that they're available. And that to me seems sufficiently broad in the sense that, well, if I move some boxes in and out, is it available then? And how temporary transit are any of those boxes? Could cars be stored in there? It doesn't seem that there is an enforceable mechanism to say you have to park a car in your garage when the garages are there and we know people are going to park it based on past experience. So I do have a hard time proving the plans as they are and would appreciate support looking at it with a mudroom. And just further echoing the comments too, a lot of talk about parking. What also is concerned, we talk about the identity of our community. We know that the city is one that appeals to family because of this great school district that we have. And in terms of these condos, these are really entry-level homes for families that are just starting out with young kids. I would support a project like this because there's a park directly across the street, but in future projects where we know we're going to try to really increase the density of an area and there's not a sufficient park to help with young families in the area or green space that they could go to offlet it, it is hard to have that, in terms of just for density, because we know families will go in there. So with that, I'll turn it over for additional comments.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah.
I can't answer any of that, right?
I mean, you're more than welcome to make comments. Absolutely.
May I?
Please.
Okay. Do you know what Quimby fees are?
I understand what Quimby fees are.
$17,000 per unit in park fees.
And I understand, and the reason I'm asking for is it's the city's problem
Right.
to use the money and funds to build additional parks.
Right.
And no, I absolutely understand that.
There's that. And then you stated about enforcing parking. The enforcement of parking is not on the plans. Enforcement of parking is on the CC&Rs. You could easily add a condition to the conditions of approval that adds to tell staff to direct us to add a sentence or some statement in the CC&Rs approvable by staff that is enforceable by the association, the homeowners association, that has a time limit or boxes or whatever. That really wouldn't be difficult at all. The planning commission doesn't review the CC&Rs. If you expect the planning commission or the city council to start reviewing CC&Rs, you will never get a project approved. This is a legal document generated by my attorney or by a developer's attorney that has a lot of boilerplate in it and a lot of specifics. It incorporates a lot of the conditions of approval that the planning commission and staff puts in the conditions. Those conditions are given to the attorney and he incorporates those conditions into the CC&Rs. Again, enforceable, traceable back to the city's conditions of approval, and that's where the requirements lie, not in the plans. We could very easily say on these plans, you're approving them given that the study on the first floor would be converted into a mudroom reviewed by staff. The design is understood to be changed, that the loft has been removed, and the massing of the building has been reduced. Done.
Appreciate it. I'm not going to get into back and forth.
That's
There's two other colleagues that still need to speak, but just to the point of seeing up parks and the Quimby fees, more response to my colleague who was making the comment about what is our community going to look like, and knowing the community that it's here now, that wants to be young families, and there's such a strong desire to move in. Parks and green space is an element I think should be part of that vision along with parking.
100% agree, yeah.
Okay. First of all, I wanted to thank you and Mr. Keski for all the work that you guys do in the community. To start off with, your reputation and the buildings that you do make Los Alamitos beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you.
The Planning Commission, I went through, read the meeting minutes, did all that I normally do. And so a couple things. First of all, I read what they did. And then Councilmember Kusumoto, I just want to say that I respect the fact that you used our right as a city council member to pull this up. I thought that your points were interesting, a lot of detail, but I appreciate it. The thing that bothers me, and it's, the Planning Commission, for me, for the last 2 years, this is the second time that we've taken a very aggressive approach to people that come into our community that want to do projects that are good. And, the first approach that we had was with Arrowhead, and the Planning Commission started a complete commotion around Arrowhead as a company. We ended up trying to do a moratorium. It ended up costing us a tremendous amount of money. I watched, this thing unfold, and I see what is going through this process, and I don't understand when we take a look at the project. I'm a state licensed engineer too, and I have a construction company, and I will say this, it's the same thing I said during the moratorium, which is I don't understand when we start moving the targets on people that invest their money to do projects in our community, and then we try and hold them out. The bottom line is, math equation is how many parks are required based on what is currently in the code, not what we want to be in the code, but what is in the code. Somebody like Keski or yourself go out, you make an investment, you buy property, and you try and build to it. I don't understand how now we sit back and we say, okay, hey, look, no, you know what, a lot of technical reasons, I think we're going to go ahead. The Planning Commission made a determination. It was not a majority or, where everybody said, hey, I want to do this. But I can't imagine how tough it is knowing that you guys have done. I think I know of at least probably 10 or 15 projects that you guys have done in this community that, by the way, every time you do them, it makes that area nicer. It really does. The other part that's hard is Councilmember Murphy, when he's talking about the math equation, and do we want to add by de facto a certain amount of people in our community, but based on allowing us to do this. Again, that's looking at this after the fact. Our code allows this to happen. If it needs to be a priority, we need to fix it. But we can't sit back and penalize the first person through that pressure tests what we do or do not like. We just spent $400,000 on a general plan, and we made zoning last, and we haven't finished it yet. So I really struggle. Something I'm kind of interested in is this project specifically going through is in Apartment Row. It's on Farquhar. One of our commissioners has property throughout. Was everybody cleared for conflicts on this project? We're not supposed to vote on things if we live within 500 feet or we have a vested interest. I find it hard that our planning commissioner that has really been pushing this whole thing doesn't live within 500 feet or have a piece of property. Yeah.
Go back to the planning commission meeting for our property on Howard.
Okay.
The planning commission you're talking about recused himself from that seat, sat in the audience, and spoke in the public hearing against the project.
Yeah.
If that's not a conflict and highly illegal, I don't know what is.
Yeah. So I got to tell you, I really struggle with the way that we're going about this. I think that, and the drawings, look, I've been on for almost 12 years. When something gets brought up to here in the call for appeal, you look at what was frozen in time at the point. I personally don't care if you have great new drawings. Matter of fact, I understand you've done this, not your first time through, but honestly, all I care about is what did the Planning Commission see? Does it match what we legally promoted and was publicly disclosed at the time? That's all we have to make our decision on, and a good attitude. I'm good. I totally support this project. I hope that we can get through this. I respect my colleagues and their opportunity to be able to talk through. If anything, this is very healthy for us because we're kind of rehearsing for a zoning discussion we need to have. I just hope that we don't have to have it at your expense. I really do. I think this is a good project, and and again, I hope that we'll all keep an open mind. And if there are people up here that want to make a change to this, I'm not sure we pick this project that's in flight where somebody's invested a tremendous amount of money to make this change. And I watched this thing get continued. I've been watching this thing work its way through this process, and your attitude even tonight, where it would be very easy to lose your cool. I don't know if I could have totally. Maybe that's why Keski's not here, but
he's fishing up in
yeah,
Canada
sure he
right
is.
now. He can't even answer a phone.
But anyway, I just think I would like to know the conflict if that was completely vetted on the Planning Commission. I just want to make sure. And like I said, a message to the Planning Commission. I hope you guys aren't going down this path again, because this is terrible. We almost didn't get the CVS pharmacy in the early days because we started taking a militant path on people trying to make investments in our community. Then we went after a business in Arrowhead. Now we're going after one of the prime developers in our community. There's a right way to do this. And you know what? I'm not trying to come across strong or overcritical of the Planning Commission or anybody up here, but I need to make sure that the message is not unanimous from this council, that we don't appreciate what the businesses are doing and the people that are making investments in our community. So I hope we do the right thing tonight, and good luck to you.
No, I appreciate it, and thank you. And you guys have some tough ones coming up, I understand, so. Yeah.
Thank you. Just to add my 2 cents, I did walk over to the 2 properties. They are 2 of the oldest looking properties we have in the city. There are some huge updates that need to happen. I'm familiar with Eddie's work. He does first-class work, and obviously you do the same. I am concerned about the density. I'm concerned about the on-street parking. In that area, there are a lot of driveways. After looking at the plans, it looks like you're adding a little bit more on-street parking by getting rid of the existing driveways there, so that'll help a little bit. I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Edgar. You know, we set out a set of rules called our general plan. You live by those rules. It's not fair for us to sit up here and make you the test case for future developments. We really need to look at each of these individually because they're all unique in their own sense. And for us to make rules for you to abide by so other future projects don't happen even though you're following the rules that have been given you, I don't think is fair. It's not fair to your business. It's not, it's just not the right thing to do at this point. So that's my 2 cents. I'm looking forward to those projects. It'll make that part of the street very, very nice. The kids at the park looking on some brand new condos. I think it's just going to be good. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I do have one go back if I may. So it goes back to this package, Stephen, included the subdivision committee's decision on the track map. So you didn't provide the track map to us? At least I didn't see it. Was it the small size, or was it? And so the question I have, just relative to the track map, does it have to be accurate?
The track map is not a final map. There's certain things you'll get on a track map, and you'll condition it to make sure it has the T's crossed and the I's dotted by the time it comes final.
Okay.
And that final is an action taken by yourselves as the city council at a later date before occupancy.
Okay, but on the one that I noted, in the upper right-hand corner, at least as best I could tell from the report, that little legend that shows where the property is located is showing it being on the south side of Farquhar, and that confused me.
Oh, the map?
On that little breakout.
Vicinity map.
On the north side, yeah.
Yeah, I know it's on the north side, but that's why I'm asking, what's the accuracy of the site? I mean, this is what the commission had to actually approve, correct?
Well, they don't approve the track map. They
The
approve
preliminary, the tentative track map, they do approve, the subdivision committee approves the tentative track map, right? And so my question is, how accurate does it have to be? Because, you know, here we have, you know, the people we appoint to go and look at this stuff and
the city engineer gets to review the tentative track map and make his comments. I think we already have a couple of comments from Dave. And then there'll be another, when we submit the
I understand, yeah,
a whole bunch more review.
But the planning commission took action on the tentative track map, right?
The tentative track map is merely saying that you're allowed to subdivide the space, right? That's all the planning commission's approving, is it's okay to subdivide the space.
Okay, yeah, I'm just, again, the question on the accuracy, because I was confused.
If I could, Warren, it is attached to your staff report. It's a
Okay.
small version. It's not in your big package.
But you see where I'm referring to?
Yeah, I see the little vicinity map. Yeah,
And
we'll have that changed.
Okay, so those, yeah. But I guess a question, you know, even to Mayor Pro Tem Edgar's point. So we have this commission that's enacting or making decisions on something, and as Councilmember Murphy says, are they complete? Now, they're perhaps an evolving process, I get that. But I think there are some elements that, when I look at them, it's like, how could they approve this? That's my kind of take on it, going through the, you know, stacking up of everything and trying to look at the errors, or the errors. The interpretation, such as the 500 square feet of private open space. You know, I get where that comes from as a requirement, but from a bookkeeping, your coverage from a footprint of the structure, right? Not the cantilevered second or third level, but the footprint of the structure itself, the landscape, the walkway, the driveway. When you look at all that, it's supposed to add up, correct? To your 9360.
I'm pretty sure it adds up. I might be mistaken, but it's intended to add up.
But again, it'll go back to, if you're using 500 square feet of private open space, it'll add up. I get that, right? I understand that. But your private open space that you actually, have on your drawing is 1,045.
But the private open space is 500 square feet. The rest of the open space is extra open space that's counted in the landscape area.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Okay, so the numbers are all in there. It's where you put it.
Okay.
So if you wanted to increase the number that's private open space, then you'd have to decrease the number that's landscape. But
decrease
the area that's not private open space in that 100 square feet, the rest of it is, what is it? It's landscape. It's private but not private.
But is that true, Stephen? If it's excess of 100 square feet in the private open space, it's landscape?
Yeah, all of it can be included in landscaping.
But landscape.
But a portion of the percentage has to go to a dedicated area for each unit.
But landscaping could be patio concrete?
Yeah.
Not our definition
Not
of
green space?
Not our definition of landscape that says that you have to have trees and plants.
No,
and
it says public open space. I mean, sorry, private open.
Private, yeah.
Which, again, I'm going to go, if it's concrete, it's not landscape. That's my kind of point.
But it's open space that's
It's open
dedicated
space,
to that
but
unit.
it's not landscape.
Correct.
Right? So I submit to, I guess, the council, my colleagues here, regardless of what we decide here, I think the code, and we're going to go through the zone, I guess, updates, but there's so many holes in the code. The thing, certainly I don't want us to see is us to get sued for not following code. We have a situation at a property nearby that we're being accused of not following code. And we don't certainly want that happening on one of your projects, right? That someone will come in and even just whether it's the instant you sell it or the next development you have or 5 or 10 years down the road that someone says we didn't follow our code. That's not something that we want as in terms of to me, I won't be here, but certainly councils, the council members after us will be here dealing with that kind of potential issue. So we have to either fix the code to match the project, or
you need to refine the code so it matches the intent of what the city wants in the code. I used to be an electrical engineer. I did design for Northrop Rockwell in aerospace.
I'm there with you.
I wrote a lot of specifications.
I'm there with you.
Okay, I wrote a lot of specifications. Shalls, wills.
Yep.
Nightmare,
Yep, I know. And then you got the.
Here we have this code. I look at it, I go, oh my God, this is.
I know. I understand.
This is a nightmare.
I know. I understand. That's why. And then I'm looking at your drawing and I'm trying to
code. I'm happy to help.
And I'm not trying to weaponize this code. I'm just looking at saying, well, where does this fit? Where does that fit?
And I'm not trying to cherry pick the code and find parts that work for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to help revise the code. I've offered it to Stephen. I said, hey, I'll come in on a committee and help. I have that expertise too. It's fun.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay.
If you can think that's kind of sick, but it's fun.
Yeah. All right, I'm with you.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to I guess, re-verify the preliminary planning commission, but I think there's a procedural way that I'll have to go about that.
First of all, we need to see whether anybody else wants to speak on the issue.
Okay, are there any other public comments?
Still no.
All right, we'll close it again. And do I have a motion?
Yeah, motion to reaffirm the planning commission's previous decision.
And I'll second that.
So I guess before we vote, because I don't want a dramatic ending to that, is any further discussion?
Just clarify, approving the plans as is.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
No.
And then again, for the record, I'd like to see us refine the code or whatever to the intent, as the developer said. I think that we are opening ourselves up to some questions as to how we follow our code. And I think that, I'll differ on you in terms of parking. You kind of said, developer said that the 4-bedroom unit will get a deeded parking space that's outside in addition to the one, right? I mean, but I understand. So again, that's again, for me, if I'm a buyer, I'm going to be wanting to buy one with a parking space, right? That's kind of that's how I would look at it. So I think that we do need to fine-tune our code so that this project will not be subject to litigation.
Madam Mayor, now, given that there are two projects, the hearing dealt with both. I don't know if the motion dealt with both or not, so I'd request clarification.
I would like to deal with both. I thought I was, but if not, and out of respect for the rest of the council, my request would be that I'd reaffirm both projects. And should we procedurally go through that again?
As long as the people who voted aye agree with you, it's not a problem.
Okay.
Right.
Can we open it up for a second one, just so I can make a quick comment in a second?
Sure.
Just a
Oh,
clear,
yes.
okay,
Go ahead.
now too. Just a quick clarification. So I think staff has direction on what the council's feelings are towards dens, and I think we've set at least the idea towards future developments on there on how we feel about dens and the level of density. So in terms of what Mayor Pro Tem Edgar has said about following the rules up there, I agree it's ambiguous, and I strongly sense the urging of the council to make sure we correct this, that we operate under the code.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you.
And if there is any way that we could prioritize and speed up the zoning study, because we've been talking about that for about a year now. And I know it's all budget related, but hopefully we can forecast a little bit more accurately and get that, at least the process going sooner than September.
Jason, right now the options are the staff's recommendation is to bring it back when we have a better feel for what the fiscal year 16-17 year looks like, so that if we have any surplus from that year, we can bring that for consideration to the council for an appropriation. Anything else, Jason, out of fund balance would be
Yeah,
earlier.
I mean, if you remember in March, the council approved Los Al Boulevard, the construction contract, and the direction based upon that award was to utilize a portion of general fund balance, which we didn't have unreserved, undesignated amounts. And so the direction was to pull from the PERS reserve. So I guess theoretically we could go in the same direction in that same vein because we don't have any excess available general fund reserves. But as Brett mentioned, it's staff's recommendation that we wait until September because in August we will be in the process of closing the books. We expect there to be a surplus for 16-17. We don't know exactly how much until the books are completely closed. And at that time, when we bring it back to the Budget Standing Committee and then the council in September, we'll be able to make a recommendation and basically true up those fund balance designations. And then at that time, it would be anticipated that we could set aside an amount for the zoning code update.
But that's when we would start the RFP to go out for consultant. Isn't there any way we could bring that in sooner so when the books do close, we're ready to move because we already know, we've already identified who we're going to use. We've got the amount. I mean, that whole paperwork procedure, I think, could be brought up a little bit early because we're not spending any real dollar resources on that.
In fact, it's my understanding that Stephen Mendoza has already gone through the RFP process. We've already received bids.
Okay.
The issue now, it just comes down to funding. So really, once we've identified funding, we're ready to go.
Okay. Great. Okay, so now we're moving back to
You wanted to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have a question on our vote. The developer promised certain changes. Are those all out the window now?
My vote or my motion was to receive the project as it passed through the Planning Commission.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I heard too.
Yeah.
So the changes they agreed to make, we're not even going to ask them to make that.
Would you change your vote to support it? I mean, what specific? I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you're asking.
To answer your overall question, I started out by saying that I'm speaking in general terms, and I clearly said we need to be fair to the current owners and clear to future developers. Okay? I'm not going to be happy. I'm leaving here with serious questions. I own buildings in Santa Ana. Anything that can be a bedroom is eventually a bedroom. That to me is on the stone tablet. There's no doubt in my mind that if you leave space, that will be a bedroom, no matter what the intention. Down the road, a family member is going to move here from Iowa. Some kid's going to come back from college. The kids are going to grow up and want more room. somebody's going to move a girlfriend in, they're going to want their privacy, they're going to be downstairs. You leave a space like that, in my mind, you have a bedroom. Okay, that's what I'm voting no against. And we're not clarifying that in any way with this vote, even though they offered to write it out. And we didn't even make a motion to do that. But we've already voted, so.
It's possible to reconsider if the maker of the motion and second make the motion to reconsider.
Look, I think it sends a great message that we go unanimous. I was reacting probably more that it looked like it was going to be a very hard line with no way out. So I'm open to that discussion. I mean, if we're talking specifically the mud room versus the bedroom, I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because I know that Josh was wanting, he was open to that too. And so I'm willing to have that discussion or reopen it if that's what it would take.
Reconsider? You're going to reconsider the vote? I guess only those in the majority can, right?
Yeah.
So formally reconsider.
Second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so vote to reconsider.
And let the record reflect that nobody has left the room since the original vote, so the public hearing is still open.
Great. Okay, so we've done that, Mayor.
Okay.
Do we have to vote on the reconsideration?
On what?
Do we have to vote on the reconsideration?
Well, you
Okay.
kind of already did.
Okay, fair enough.
But so I guess, if I may, then I think I understand what my colleague here is asking about. So the offer from the developer to make certain changes. Now, I'm not asking you to come and speak certain things, but I guess mechanically, I'll have a process and procedural concern with this, and I'm just to let you know, I'm not going to change my vote, not because I don't want to hear about it, but I think procedurally it should go. If we're going to consider that, it ought to go back to the Planning Commission for them to have another, I'll say, turn at it. So I understand the intent, and I appreciate your opening that up, Troy. I do, but I think that procedurally, I think we're going down a different kind of path that we ought not to do that. We empower the commission to do a certain thing. We have that right of review, which we've exercised. We have a decision here, and I live with the decision because I'll be honest, it doesn't affect me as much as maybe some of the other folks, because where I live in my north side, it's us. We don't get the traffic that the other folks will see. But be that as it may, I think any kind of changes from the plan, as Stephen Mendoza said, I think it's something we ought not to get into. That's just my piece.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Rich, are you conflicted with making a change here?
No, I can vote yes, because I feel that under the rules that they bought the property and they made their application, they qualify.
Okay.
I can't stress enough the need to move swiftly forward on this. I think we're all in agreement on that.
Yeah.
That if you can't even define a bedroom, I felt like Bill Clinton when I was reading this. What is? What's a bedroom? It's just as basic. Okay, so
I'm going to go ahead and reaffirm the vote of the Planning Commission with the amendment to rename the bedroom a mudroom. Study.
From
Or the
mudroom
study
laundry
to the
room.
mudroom. I just want to make sure we're
You
very.
can just rename it, because if it's a mudroom, it has to have the laundry in it. So just
Okay.
changing the name. If you say, I motion to approve with the change of the study becoming called a mudroom, it's still a room.
Okay.
If I change it, I'm gonna put the laundry room in there anyways, but I think you'd want to say mudroom to include laundry facilities or something.
And I think
Just to
the
be-
Planning Commission needs to see the new plans and approve them, so the council can
It's the same
send it back to the Planning Commission for review. The Planning Commission will now know where the council is on this, and Mr. Mendoza can review the plans, the revised plans, which he's never seen.
The Planning Commission approved the original plans.
They
so
approved
why
the
would we
original
send it
plans.
back?
You, on your call for review, can send it back to the Planning Commission to review the revised plans.
Don't do it.
I mean, that's.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Yeah, no, Rich, I apologize if that's going to be the case and we have to send it back to the Planning
No,
Commission.
I don't think anybody has that desire.
No.
Yeah.
Even the people voting no. don't.
Yeah, I believe it should, but I understand the time is of the essence. I understand that. So
Stephen, is there any other way to modify it without sending it back?
Yeah, I think the council just does it through their motion that they just did by relabeling square footage that is existing on the plan.
Okay, so can you clarify what the changes are?
Certainly, the clarification for the ground floor study shall be a mudroom/laundry room.
And the dimensions remain the same?
Yeah.
Okay, that'll be the modification to my affirmation
Point of
request.
privilege, just a question. There's no plumbing within that room currently now? Set in plans?
Not now, no, but there will be.
So we can approve it with the idea that plumbing would be inside there and that would be perfectly acceptable?
Yes.
We would have to go back to another review because of...
Correct. When we get the actual building plans, the big round stuff, we'll make sure the council's and the commission's desires are met.
Okay, then we're fine.
Okay, that's my motion. I need a second.
A second. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we need a break? Or
Why not?
Come on, let's do that.
Should take
Want a break? Let's take a 10-minute recess. Before we move on.
Motion for both items then?
Yes. Convene? Oh, the gavel. Go ahead and reconvene. It's on my right side and I'm on the left yet. I don't know that. All right, so we're moving to consent calendar. Does anybody wish to pull anything?
M and N, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any
F.
other? L?
F.
F, I'm sorry.
And J. And O.
Okay, do you have a motion to move the balance?
Yeah.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's go in alphabetical order, I guess. Let's start with F and Troy.
Oh, let's see. Let me get there. Yeah. So, agenda item F is the adoption resolution of establishing salaries and benefits for non-represented employees. So, a couple questions on this. When you look at this item, it does a couple things. It basically does a 1% cost of living adjustment to the ranges that are in there. That's just more of, I'm going to state this, and city manager, if you could just give me a confirmation. And then it also adds another 40 hours of administrative leave. And I guess the question I have is, was this item given to the ad hoc committee to evaluate, and are these numbers already baked into the budget?
Yes and yes. We did discuss it with the standing committee as part of the budget, and in mentioning that it's incorporated into the budget and what it was about.
Okay. Can you give me orientation a little bit of, this contract in the context of all the other labor contracts? I remember making the adjustments for the past 2 years, but with this one, I guess the issue that I'm having is the 1% increase in costs would be the cost of living, even though that right now inflation is at an all-time low and no cost of living is actually going. But I think this is a parity issue with other contracts. So the second part is the administrative leave. When you go through the non-represented contract that's included in the agenda, it kind of looks at how much vacation do people have, how much administrative leave. So when you add up the administrative leave on top of, I think there's 10 to 12 holidays. Anybody over 7 years is at 3 or 4 weeks of vacation. Then you add another week of administrative time, which is on top of the 5 days that you also get. It starts looking like, we have the equivalent of, about 30 days off per year. And, earlier in the night, we had the discussion on the study for rates and assessments. So there we're looking for revenue, and we're looking to maintain our service levels. We also have a consulting contract in here for $30,000 or $40,000 where we're trying to restructure. And it just seems like this seems to be kind of contradicting what the direction or the problem that we have of doing this. And again, I just want to be sensitive. If the ad hoc committee went through this and seen this in the bigger picture, I just don't remember. When I say bigger picture, there's the police contract and the other worker.
Working unit.
Yeah, and so I just, again, remind me, kind of put this into context if you could.
Yeah, in terms of the 1%, it really is a parity issue. It's very comparable to what the two represented groups are getting in this next fiscal year. Both of those contracts are set to expire next fiscal year. One is June 30th and one is September 30th. We've laid out in the staff report what each of the two groups are scheduled to get for the very last year of their agreement, and 1% for this non-represented group of 10. Basically, it's management, non-represented exempt employees. It's very comparable on the compensation piece for the additional year. So 1% over 1 year, $17,000 fiscal impact. The administrative leave is intended to recognize the work that these exempt employees do, that they work. They are not eligible for overtime. The other two groups are. So this takes it from 40 hours to 80 hours of administrative leave. It's a non-budgetary item, and we haven't assigned a cost in terms of the budget. There is a cost. They are able to, when they use the leave, there is a cost because they're getting paid their hourly rate, but it's a use it or lose it type of benefit. It's incurred within the calendar year, and if it's not used, it goes away, which is different than vacation and the other benefits that are included.
Okay, yeah, like I said, it's the cost to the city is the amount of service time available by, and this contract specifically is for all of the senior leadership of our city.
Right,
Right.
there's 10.
Yeah, so yeah, like I said, I think I'm just wanting to make a conscious pause. It's on the consent calendar, which would normally just kind of blow right through. So I just wanted to pull it, see if there's any discussion to be had. I'm not trying to make a big deal. And I guess if you're on the ad hoc committee of the finance side and you've seen this, I'm sure you guys have thought through the ramifications of this. So Rich, if you've got it.
I strongly disagree with the original comment that there's no budgetary influence here or consequence. And oddly enough, this exact same argument was made at the OCTA meeting, that administrative leave is free. And I said no. In fact, Brett and I went over this morning, that if you take somebody's 50 weeks worked, and divide it, you know what they make per day, and if they get a day off, you've lost that productivity. The fact that it's actually more in line with the others, correct? It was trying to bring it in line is
That's correct.
Like I said, strongly disagree that it's free, or no budgetary impact, because it can't be. But with the fairness issue, I could see where it passes.
Yeah, Rich, I think the part where most of the city staff, I believe, are on 980 now. That means every other Friday they're off. So City Hall has limited time now.
Yeah.
The consulting agreement for $39,000 tries to restructure Parks and Rec and Public Works into more effective, to provide better service, possibly for the same amount of money or something. And so like I said, I'll go with you guys in the ad hoc if you guys feel that this is something we can absorb. This is the type of question I would have asked when I was on the ad hoc, so I'm just making sure I'm doing my job. Josh, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it was something that we looked at the ad hoc, and also from the education I've received from there is that it was parity with the other departments. Further, I believe, wasn't there, in terms of other cities and just maintaining what a competitive employment package would be in terms, can you speak just briefly on the other
Yeah,
cities?
it's typically more than the 40 hours that this group currently has, and so it does. Jason did do a comparison of surrounding cities. Cypress is pretty comparable to what we have right now, but the compensation is higher. And Stanton and La Palma are significantly higher in leave time.
How much significantly higher?
Jason, can you give those numbers?
Yeah, so Stanton has, each city has different kind of buckets of leave. Stanton has just like a broad bucket called comprehensive leave, and that's 300 hours annually, whereas Seal Beach has 120 hours at year one for vacation and 48 hours for administrative leave, compared to the city of Los Al, which is 80 hours for vacation and 40 hours for administrative leave. And then La Palma is comparable in terms of vacation leave at 120 hours, comparable to Seal Beach, but then they actually get 80 hours for administrative leave. So when you look at it in total, Los Alamitos in year one, and a non-rep employee would get 120 hours between those two buckets, vacation and admin leave, compared to Cypress, which is comparable, 120. But then you have Seal Beach at 168, La Palma at 200, and Stanton at 300.
So in that terms of looking at it as well, not just parity within the other represented employees, but also just as a staff retention tool. You know, the most expensive people in terms of brain trust is just to replace senior management and obviously what's lost through there. So I also want to make sure that we maintain competitiveness with our surrounding cities. So that was one of the items that was brought to attention that I wanted to call out as well. So thank you for having those details ready.
Okay, great. Those are the only questions I have. Thanks.
Any comments? Do I have a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next, item J, Troy Crossing Guard.
Yeah, so item J on the agenda has to do with specifically a professional services agreement for crossing guard services. And this is for a cost of $82,000. I only remember this because I think 2 or 3 years ago we had the issue with the school district. So we're actually providing a service for the school district. We've been working with them to kind of make everything whole as a part of the package that we do with our school resource officer. And this is kind of our contribution to safety and to the schools, making sure our kids are safe in school. I thought, though, that the cost was like $50,000 or $60,000. That's a number that stuck in my mind. So just historically, is this a cost increase or is this the same amount? Because it makes some information in there that I wasn't sure.
I'll let Eric tip it just briefly. It is a higher cost than it had been previously. 60,000 was the number 2 years ago that we were talking about. We just a year ago, we contracted out with All City Management at a higher cost. The benefits are significant in that we are no longer providing our own staffing, and Eric can talk to that.
Yeah, we Mayor Pro Tem, we don't supervise the program any longer. We don't backfill the empty spots. We used to have even police officers do crossing guard duty, and at the cost of what it costs for a police officer to do that. So we don't do that, and we don't manage the program any longer. And they carry their own insurance. I believe it's up to $5 million of insurance. So in terms of the risk, we've kind of separated ourselves from that, other than contracting out for this service. There is an increase in cost. And you were talking about the SRO program. We did have the school increase 5%, I believe, was towards the cost for that SRO, which will help the overall cost that we have for this our whole school safety program.
Okay, that's the only question I have, and I'll go ahead and move that unless there's another question.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And now we're going to item M. Richard.
Do you want to allow public comment on this?
But it was part of consent, and we had public comment earlier. Do we need to do public comment again?
I don't know.
Correct? City Attorney?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Do we need to do public comment again for this? This is part of the consent calendar that we had public comment earlier?
You
There's just
do not
an-
need to do public comment on that, no.
Okay.
Does that mean you don't want to? I mean, I don't even know if anybody wants to speak, but there's 4 guys here.
Sure, I'll open it up for public comment.
For the issue.
Yeah. Okay, public comment for item M, the street name change. Anybody?
Nobody, okay.
Nope. There you go. You almost missed it.
Hi everyone, my name is Mike Brinkavage. I'm with the family plumber. You've probably seen our trucks rolling around Los Alamitos, the big white ones. My father started the company over 27 years ago. I am just now in the process of working with him and to take ownership and keep the family business going. But long story short, this change from Brigham to Sausalito, we've been through this change before in my father's history. Me working for the company, I did see the effect that it did have on our company because we primarily market our company to local individuals, and especially online with Nextdoor, Angie's List, Google AdWords, and those sites do require our address, our actual brick and mortar address, to be accessible to our clients. The previous change from Sausalito to Brigham roughly took anywhere from 2 to 3 years to actively take effect on Google, which sincerely affected our business. So long story short, we do not agree with the change. We hope that it does not pass. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for letting us speak on this topic. I'm first time even at a council meeting, so this is all brand new stuff for me, and it's pretty interesting. I'm Mark Cunningham, owner of Lab Clean. We have a non-hazardous natural cleaning business that we've owned and operated for 10 years in the Brigham address, and we deal with national accounts, so we send out a lot of collateral. I mean, a lot of collateral. So there's a lot of material that's on the street with our address on it, and it just has a major overall effect on our business that, as far as dealing with national chains, the amount of cost is beyond significant. I mean, it goes well into the 5 figures and could be as much as 6 figures. And once again, I've never been at a council meeting, so I'm not sure how this whole thing works for even out. But if there is a question, it's why are we looking to make a name change? It seems like a unnecessary cost. Sitting here and listening for the first time, all I keep hearing about is like, this, man, we got to cut expense here. We got to cut expense. We got to cut expense here. Let's do it for parks. I love parks. I love all this stuff. But just a name change in a street, I just don't get it. I mean, I'm thinking there's got to be other ways to time and money being spent. And so that's all I really have to say. If you could think about the businesses that are involved and how much we like working here in Los Alamitos, it means a lot to us. And having the name change would be a pain. So. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
2 minutes for this.
First, I'd just like to inquire why we're going through this exercise. You know, we have 10 businesses that are going to be very negatively impacted by this should it take place. You know, we have issues with websites, catalogs. We have companies that I brought into this community either through tenancy or development and selling properties to them that, as Mark just stated, ship their products on a national level. Mark's a modest guy. What he didn't tell you is that, you know, his products are on the shelves in Ace Hardware stores all over the country. He's a big-time guy. He's just very modest. He's also he's also a member of one of the most prominent and oldest families in this community, a family that's done more than any of us in this room, I assure you. You know, at the Los Alamitos Commerce Park, which is the development that was formerly the old trucking facility. I don't know, I think all of us have been here in town that long. Okay, that project, half of that project has a Serpentine address, the other half has a Brigham and Drive address. When that was initially developed by the Twomey family, I purchased 4 of those with the intent of us eventually selling them, keeping one for myself. So when I sold these, let me back up for a second, I'm sorry. What I had in mind was to sell these properties, but I leased them up first. And the reason behind that was I wanted to make sure I had the right folks in the properties, and guys, when I talked to them, that's expressed an interest in purchasing the property down the road. And I followed suit with each one of those. During that process, in speaking with these fellows, you know, I touted our little community as a great business-friendly environment. I let them know that I was a past president of the Chamber of Commerce, and that we welcome them to the community, and I would do whatever it would take to help them succeed. Now I have to explain to these guys we have this mess on our hands. It's going to cost some of them, as Mr. Cunningham stated, upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's a fellow by the name of Mike Cohen at Island World Apparel. He's in a process. I don't know if any of you folks know which building it is. It's a tilt-up building that backs up to the old Lou Webb property. Well, Mike informed me yesterday that he's in the process of printing his new catalog for the coming swimwear season. This season's over for him, obviously. So he's printing his catalog for next year as we speak. He's in the process of doing that. This guy, once again, he ships this product nationally. He imports the swimwear from China, comes in sea freight containers, and he ships it across the country in the major department stores, Nordstrom, et cetera. There's another fellow by the name of George Nunez. George purchased the unit that faces the post office in the Los Alamitos Commerce Park. He just purchased that thing. So I sold it to another fellow that had a remote control helicopter business, and he just sold that to George. George was unable to be here this evening, but he asked me to speak on his behalf. There was a young fellow by the name of Arthur that works for him that was sitting in the back, but I guess he didn't want to listen to, he was tired of his lesson in civics, so he bugged out. But I told George that I would, with his authorization, I would speak on his behalf. And he said, this certainly isn't a way to welcome me into the community. He just spent upwards of $300,000 in TIs in that property. And he just finished printing all of his material for his business. He has a big business. He has a lot of employees, 18, 20 employees in there. You know, so this is the feedback I was getting from these fellows. They didn't understand why they just received a letter. Not everyone received a letter, by the way. Why he just received a letter about 4 days ago. He said, I've got commitments elsewhere. I can't be at some city council meeting. What time do I have to be there? I said, well, it's 6 o'clock. He said, I can't be there. So he asked me if I would speak on his behalf. I believe he did send an email in the latter part of the day to the city manager. I'm not sure if he said he was going to. I don't know if he did or he did not. You know, what I would like to say is when this street was dedicated in the name of our family, it was done in recognition of our 60 years of philanthropy in the community. You know, we have to go back to, you know, and there were a myriad of reasons. It culminated with a donation that I was fortunate to be able to make to the community pool on the base back in 1998. But prior to that, you know, myself and Merle Fast, I don't know if how many of us remember Bar Lumber, you know, but we're the founding benefactors of what is now the race on the base. It was the Los Al Marathon, and then it became the Los Alamitos 10K and evolved into the race on the base. All the nonprofits in the community, you know, and that was the spirit of it. That was the spirit behind the renaming of the street. At that time, it only impacted one other business. It impacted the guys at the end of the street, Grading Pacific. At that time, Fred Freeman actually spoke with those folks, and they opted to have their address remain a Sausalito address, and that's how we dealt with that. That was prior to the development of the Brigham and Corporate Plaza. Your family, the family plumber, I met his folks when the thing was under construction. They came to me and asked me if I had any units for lease, and I said, go ahead and pick one. And so they were actually our first tenant over there, and that's how long they've been there. Once again, across the street at the Commerce Park, all four of those units that I purchased, I ended up selling those to the tenants because I felt that they would be an asset to the community. They were philanthropically minded folks. There's another guy with Key West Marketing, same thing. He asked me to articulate a message on his behalf. He just wants to know why are you guys doing this to him? That's what he asked. He couldn't be here tonight. He would like to chat about it again. And he said, once again, he said, this thing is going to cost me tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. We don't know about title deeds. You're going to have a cloud on your title now. Once again, there weren't multiple properties over there before. Now we have these industrial condos. someone goes to refinance their property, they're gonna end up with a cloud on title. It's gonna be detrimental, very detrimental to some of these folks, and it's something that's gonna take months, if not years, to clear up. We went down this road on a much smaller scale when we changed the name of the street. So please, guys, if someone has an issue with me, and this has something to do with something along those lines, then take it up with me. Don't punish these folks. Don't punish the folks that I welcome to the community, and I went after them as an ambassador for the community and asked them to move in here. Take it up with me directly, please. If it's a political issue or something, just don't punish our businesses. Once again, I work very hard to develop a business-friendly environment as a president of the Chamber of Commerce, and it was actually the president back in the day, a long time ago. And I continue to do so. My partner, Bill Taramina, I was fortunate enough to get him to come over from Anaheim, help me with some of these developments. You know, I built 4 homes on Farquhar. Once again, enhanced Farquhar, beautiful homes. What these guys are doing is phenomenal. That, you know, it takes a tremendous amount of effort and a lot of work to continue to beautify a community, and I feel that's what we've done over there on Brigham and Drive. And like I said, can we just please leave it alone and not impact these folks? They just want to run their business. They've worked very hard. They just want to be left alone. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? And I'll go ahead and close it and bring it back and start with you, Richard.
Okay, when I looked at this item, I thought of the Hippocratic Oath a doctor takes, which is basically first do no harm. And I don't think we're living up to that here. It just, I don't see a positive reason for changing the name of the street, and we have all the businesses that are going to be affected. Personally, I've moved twice in 2 years. The forwarding at the post office is less than excellent. I didn't get my driver's license, my car renewal, registration renewal, several licenses I hold. None of that stuff got to me, and I had to go find it when I realized I was out of date. So to make this change, I think is going to impact everybody who lives there, works there, in getting their mail and other information. I live on, Stephen, is Sausalito Court the newest street in Los Alamitos?
Yeah, that and the Harmona Way, which
Okay.
is in the same development.
Okay. So I live on the newest street in Los Alamitos. 3 years it's been there, and it's still not on Google. People can't find our house. We get calls, people are driving up and down Sausalito, and we have to kind of go out and guide them in. And I can't imagine what it's going to do for people who are trying to do business like that and have a lot more visitors than we do. And finally, under fiscal impact on the staff report, it says minimal fiscal impact. I think from the city's point of view, that's true. But from the business's point of view, I think it's going to be an enormous impact. And I just don't see a positive reason to change the name. Thank you.
Thank you. So question for staff with respect to the lot, in which I guess is butts against the street, Brigham Way, and the widening of that street. Did the hotel ask for any kind of change, or are they're neutral on the name change?
No, the hotel doesn't know a thing about this. They're the impetus for widening the street.
Understand? Okay. But they have no preference to your understanding then?
No, we didn't reach out to them because they have no business there that would change and have any financial impacts to their change.
To your best understanding, what type of, do you know the brand of the hotel?
Yeah, Marriott Fairfield Inn.
And there would be probably a little chance he would want to come in and name a street Marriott Way or anything like that?
No, they're going to be addressed off Los Al Boulevard.
Okay, got it. All right, so their address will be, okay, all right, no other questions, thank you.
Josh?
I'm in favor of just consistency standpoint. It always kind of struck me as interesting for having Brigham and Drive. So when this item came up, it immediately struck me as just, well, make it consistent for Sausalito. I can understand the impact of reprinting and the cost, especially if it's an immediate cost. But I'm open to at least delaying this for a time period, whether it be in a year, to provide that consistency on the boulevard.
Troy?
Yeah, I would like to see us, especially with this new project coming in, is to try and be consistent with the naming across. So I'd be supportive of this, and I'd be open to give the businesses time to make the change over time.
And I'm torn on this. I had, over the weekend, had one viewpoint, along with the consistency, doing research on some of our city streets and why they were named, most of them after founding families or environmental meetings, such as Sausalito or Los Alamitos Boulevard. I honestly have to admit I didn't take the small business financial perspective out of view, and I apologize for that. I take the residents' viewpoint because they're my voters. True admission. Although I would like the consistency at Sausalito, I am going to flip-flop my opinion, and for the sake of the small businesses, which is the bread and butter of our city, probably support to remain as it is. So, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to not adopt the staff resolution as put forward.
I'll second that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay. All right. So now we're going on to item N. Richard.
Yeah, this is a simple one. I want to thank the staff and the Traffic Commission for their work they did on this. Both Josh and I independently brought this idea forward almost, I bet, within a day of each other. That I almost got hit here 4 times, and I just said, you know, this is insane not to have a stop sign here. And the Traffic Commission took it forward. They looked at several other ideas, and just want to thank them for their work and thank the staff for their work in getting this done. And I'll move the item.
And second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Now on to public hearings. Item A, adoption of the Los Alamitos fiscal 2000.
What about O?
I'm sorry.
I think O.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Troy, item O.
Yeah, I'm getting up there. Hold on just a second. I forgot
See, I just
myself.
flipped right to mine. It was real quick.
Almost there.
Is the guy still back there?
Yeah. So item O. I'm surprised I'm the only one that pulled this. So this has to do with the Los Alamitos Aquatics program, and it actually poses probably. I don't want to be. I wanted to give Rich a little bit of a hard time. I think this was one of the most, I guess, important decisions that I think this council can make, and that's the future of the aquatics program. You know, with the loss of the pool and going through and you start looking at the options in this, you know, there's basically, if you look at the staff report, there's 3 options. We get rid of the aquatics program because we don't have a pool, but we are kind of supporting a program kind of in a quasi form. But the option 1 is get out of the business. Option 2 is kind of a hybrid of potentially stay in the business, but kind of work in kind of very similar to the way we're doing now. And then option 3 is to be a front for the businesses in the community, including MWR, which is the welfare group that's at the base that basically handles the pool now, and be kind of a front end for that business of aquatics. A staff report says that it's about a break-even business in the model that it's in now, even though today, earlier in the budget review, when we were talking about the user fees, the numbers were different than the numbers tonight, but it's probably a timing issue. But I think if I remember right, it was about $125,000 or $128,000 worth of revenue, $125,000 worth of costs for a net of almost nothing. I really do want to have a discussion on this. You know, when the pool got closed or was closed to us because the base was modernizing its contracts, you know, we had a significant investment in that pool, and we also had a significant investment in staff. Corey has done an unbelievable job in maintaining that, And that's why you see in our general fund a pretty significant decrease in our budget that was over $400,000 is now at the 125, and the difference between that is all the operations and maintenance that we used to have to do. I think that it's pretty important for us to have a really quick discussion to give Corey a very clear path on where are we going from here. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me to be the front for swim schools and MWR and take a cut of it, because that seems like a dying business model. We could say that for just about anything that we don't have the ability to do ourselves and be a front end for the community. But it did make me kind of wonder, if you put all the pieces together tonight we hired a consultant to figure out how we can get Parks and Recreation and Public Works to work together in a new model. Now we're looking at one of the most important programs, and we're not even going to talk about it. It's on the consent calendar, and figure out, well, what are we supposed to do here? Then we looked at the user fees earlier today, and we see how much we can get out of the $1.4 million potentially in non-recovered Parks and Recreation fees. It seems like we're not taking these things in a logical sequence, and I'm concerned a little bit about it. So I will stop going with my opinion. I'm really interested if anybody up here has an opinion on what goes on with the Los Alamitos Aquatics program. Do we really want to continue this forward? All of us are aware too, there's a lot of things going on in this community that we should probably think about at the 50,000 foot level. One, we are constantly interacting with the school district and trying to have an agreements on fields in the gym that may someday come into question, and our ability to perform services in those locations could be at risk, and therefore we may or may not be in that business for the long term. There could be stuff that happens that has collateral damage that takes us out of that business utilizing school district assets, and that's something we should think about in the same way that we lost the pool. Second thing is LAIF. Within the school district, LAIF is a nonprofit organization that is funded to be able to help the school districts raise money, and to do that they provide a lot of services that potentially could be competing for the same spaces and times and places that we are trying to provide a service of which Corey manages. Depending on how that goes in the future, and none of us are really working together as one community to figure that out, LAIF has a cost advantage that helps in that process. I'm not going to say I see the financials. I'm not on their board. I don't know the details, but directionally they are able to utilize school assets in a lot more potential area of, and not as contentious as fields and stuff, that potentially they could move upstream and provide some of the same services. And some people in our community, if you've talked to people about this that are involved with LAIF, some people would argue that the kids belong to the school district. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard that argument. And if you take that out, you realize that we've got a competitor. Now we've got another competitor. We have MWR at the base. Now we have LAIF. And we are potentially in situations with the school district for the future from here forward on what are we going to do with the fields and what do we do with the gym. This program is possibly the start of the new model of Parks and Recreation, when we, quote, don't own anything, don't have access to anything, and we provide a benefit to the community, which is we put out a community guide that says you can go to a one-stop shop and we'll handle managing all these vendors that provides the services. That could be our model in the future, but we should talk about it. Or we end up being Parks and Recreation, which all we do is provide, movies in the park, seniors, and we focus on the demographic that's pretty prevalent in our community, which is the older crowd, and we move out of the way of some of the competition that's out there. So I'm really concerned about this. I really think that we should talk about it. If we really don't have an opinion, then let's not be surprised in 3 to 5 years when we no longer can compete in providing Parks and Recreation, and Corey's doing the best he can to hold it together. So I think with that, I would just like to have a little bit of a conversation up here on this item. Thank you, Mayor.
Anybody?
Could we have a staff report and maybe get their point of view?
Sure.
Sure. I'll let Corey, I'll just briefly say this was an item that the City Council directed staff to take it back to the Recreation Parks Commission, and Corey then put together a staff report of different options for their consideration and feedback. And now Corey can go into the details about what they discussed and how we got to this point right here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The item that's before you is taking information from 2 previous commission meetings. The first one where they began discussing the item per the council's direction on the program, and after quick discussion realized that they wanted feedback from the community and to open it up to the broader aquatics folks that participate in our program. So we continued the item to the following month, sent out an email to our database of, I believe, around 1,200 emails notifying all of our past participants that this was going to be on the agenda. I forwarded it to all of my staff to inform the constituents that we had currently enrolled in the program. We had probably about a dozen folks that attended that. I'd say 95% of them, I believe all but one or two, excuse me, were there representing the Finns, the Masters program. Their number one concern was continuity and consistency. They didn't want the programs to go away. One attendee had an individual had her daughter in a private swim lesson and just wanted to show her support for the program and for the staff and for what we provide. Another individual arrived late and left early, but was there, I know, in support of our water aerobics, or had an interest in our water aerobics program. She didn't speak. But generally, the consensus from the commission was, after hours of discussion, was in light of staffing issues that we've had, in light of management, the lack of us managing the pool, and now it under the management of MWR, and the challenges again when it comes to staffing of hiring a staff. Summertime is it's a challenge really throughout the state. Everybody's having issues with it. I got an email a couple weeks ago from the city of Placentia begging if we had lifeguards that we could send them, that they'll pay the city, that they'll pay people, whatever they need, that there's a major shortage of lifeguards in general. That aside, we just have swim instructors. I during the summertime, I've got enough hours, but during the school year, I can give somebody an hour and a half to 2 hours a day of work, and that's about it. And the benefit of being able to do the lifeguarding and the swim instructing is I can put those together, so I can do a 4 or 5 hour shift, which is much more conducive to hiring and retaining staff. So in light of that and several, like I said, a 2.5 hour long discussion, the commission made the recommendation to contract with contract with MWR. The reasoning for that is that they manage the pool. The base owns the pool. They're managing the pool, and they have the ultimate authority to either accept or deny any other user that could come in. I've spoken with them at length several times. They are very interested in it. Andy from NAF and MWR is here tonight. Very interested. They've got a number of staff. We could provide them with additional staff if they're interested, and they have the asset. The advantage of doing this is we do this all the time with our contract classes. We offer a couple hundred, I think it's anywhere around 400 contract classes and camps throughout the year, whether it's dance, whether it's yoga, whether it's, a Lego camp, whether it's with Build It Workspace. We work with other contractors where we don't have the skill set. I'm not a dancer, but I can go out there and find someone that can teach it. And we manage the marketing for them. We manage the registrations for them, and we do a profit share for them. And that's where this model would come after, is just like the rest of our contract classes, where we would eliminate the skill set. Again, contract classes have been around for 30 years. I remember Angie telling me stories of when it came into fruition of a great opportunity that you don't need to hire all these people with all these specific skill sets anymore. Now you can contract with these folks to come in. They have a skill set. Maybe they have a facility, maybe they don't. So we either provide the facility or we utilize theirs, but we set up a contract with them. They provide us with the insurance, and we work together as a team. And that would be the goal for this, is to work with MWR as a team. We would be their marketing and registration wing, and they would provide the knowledge base and the employees and the facility to be able to do so. So that's our goal going forward, would be, we still offer the program. It is still a city program. It is a contract class, just like I said, like you know, our activities guide demonstrates. You would not see much difference, if any difference, other than maybe, you know, their name attached somewhere in there and the phone number for inquiries. But again, they'd register through our website. The information would still go out, and we would have an agreement with MWR to be the contract instructor for the aquatics program, like we have with Ann Pennypacker for a dozen dance programs and so on and so forth. It relieves some of the staffing implications and issues that we've faced. We're no longer competing with MWR for staffing, which we're still doing. We still both have staff that are both working for both entities. Andy and I work very well together in trying to manage that. Wish we could say the same for the staff that are putting us in that position. But I know that the commission really did look hard at this, and it was troublesome for them. Some of them specifically said, I do not like to contract stuff out. But with everything, with the issues and things that we're facing, it makes sense for them who has the facility to be able to work with us rather than just taking it on themselves, for us to be able to work with them and manage pieces of it while they manage the actual programs. And speaking with Andy, he wants to continue the programs, the swim lessons, the water aerobics, and the master's programs as is. It's a great model. You know, we still need to work out the contractual portion, and you know, the staffing piece, but we're getting through the summer, and with the fall, some of the numbers come down and make it much more manageable for him and the staff. So it's always a challenge to give up programs. You know, it's as a recreation professional, you know, my goal is always to retain control and make it the biggest and best that we can. But with the direction of the council that I believe we were headed, was my goal is not to eliminate a program, and this was a way to not eliminate a program, still be able to continue it in a way that we've already have other models for, and still be able to offer what I consider an essential service of life safety, keeping kids safe and even adults safe in the water, being 5 feet, 5 miles or less from the ocean. With the number of backyard pools and HOA pools, I want to continue to do our part by offering life safety, and this is an opportunity to do that. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any other questions that you have, but that's the recommendation of the commission, and I would stand by that.
Any comments?
So just as you stand by that, would means you would agree?
Yes.
With, okay. I guess in my terms too, I taking contract classes with the city for my children. I don't see necessarily an issue with moving towards the same model for the JFTB pool, in that we market it and we provide a service. We have the charge. It's a model that's worked well so far for other contract classes and removes kind of the administrative burden in some respects to allow for efficiency by not managing the staff that goes along with it. It's definitely a change. I can see how the Park Commission could obviously struggle with this, just being a former member myself. But in terms of what we're looking at in the pool, and obviously the question is, can the private sector do it better than the city? We're having a model to allow somewhat to that, and we take advantage of it, but also leveraging our brand, the city, and having the stamp approval behind that and our ability to market it and make it. So I would support that as a way to show that offerings are still there, but it also gives us flexibility that if one particular program is not viable, then we haven't hired staff already for this that we would outline. Further, I mean, in terms of partnering with the JFTB or trying to go some other way where we go directly to the JFTB, we know they're not a reliable long-term partner based on the most recent developments. So this gives us flexibility that if we want to move the contracts and make an assessment 1 year, 2 years greater, we can do that. So I would be supporting this item.
Oh, thank you. I think I understand the business model. I think it's it'll be interesting to see how it works. I think I'll be supportive of this. But to Mayor Pro Tem Edgar's point, I do understand where you're coming from, and I think we do need to take kind of a longer-term strategic look. And much like the prior agenda item, the hearing that we had, I think it would probably be very healthy for this body, this council, to meet with each of the commissions in a very, open, I guess, agendized session. We can actually share that knowledge that we have and the concerns, because we are chartering them to, to fulfill their mission, right? To look at this, we should take those recommendations back, and perhaps it would be healthy on a, if not yearly, at least every other year basis, to have that calibration again, so we're sure that we're aligned. Because if I understand, Troy, I think you were thinking, yeah, I know where you're going, and I don't disagree with that. That may be an eventual outcome down the road. I think we need to share that with the commission, and then they can be kind of, at least, they may not agree with it, but at least they'll have the information that you have, that we have, and they can at least deliberate with that thought. Because, yeah, this may be a model that will not work sometime in the future, and then what are we going to do, right? So we have to have that, I think, that exit strategy as well planned into it. Not that we want to get out of the business, but I think that service to the community, we need to manage their expectations and let them know that we're doing our best to provide this. But, I'm pretty sure that if you were to work this out, it'll be transparent to the average user, right? Which would be a wonderful thing, but again, it might be borrowed time. So I think that's what I like to propose for both the traffic, the planning, and then we should think about agendizing a joint meeting with the council and those commissions to look at that. And I don't know about the personnel commission. Do we need to meet with them?
They haven't met in 3 years.
I'm joking. With that, I'll pass it back. Thanks.
Richard?
My only question, I guess I have a question for Troy, and that I didn't think of pulling this because the conclusion made sense to me. Mm-hmm. But from what you're saying, I feel like I'm missing something. You want to remake your case?
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Rich. So we know behind the scenes with the base, race on the base might have had its last year. It may not. It does not look in super good. 4th of July may be this last year. We know that to be a fact. MWR, I would argue that, the Build It space example doesn't cost me $125,000 a year of city money to work with Build It space and put on workshops. So we either are in an old allocation model, or we truly have a lot of staff still focused in this. So it's not truly a contract model like we're talking about. It's a super hybrid that it's hard and it's distracting. And so I'm not sure that I'm fully there. I'm worried the long term's 10 to 15 years out for Parks and Rec, and I'm afraid strategically that we're going to get distracted by this thing that we have emotionally, I'll say maybe me, I've emotionally attached to because my kids went through it back in the days when I was at the high school, before the base, all that. When the real big picture is our Parks and Rec department in the next 5 to 10 years may act like the small city we are. We've always flexed up. What made this community special and brought me here and my family is because, I didn't know where the border was with Rossmore, to be quite honest, and, our school districts and everything. And now I see organizations, things going on behind the scenes where it's land grabs of what do we do good, and we start focusing on it. I foresee in the next 3 to 5 years that the schools will start to consume the fields and the gym possibly. And then what does that mean for our programs? We've got a youth center that sits in the back lot that we never talk about. We own the building. We never charge them. But at some point, we need a place to provide services. So what happens there? That contract's coming up. There's a lot of bigger picture things that are going on. So we're caught up in this, we're up on Mount Olympus. We're looking down at the Spartans and we're going, that looks bad, but we're caught up in it. And I just worry because, when we lost the pool, we have a management structure, an organizational structure with Corey and 2 supervisors that actually is used to managing $1.4 million worth of service that now manages $300,000 of service. But we haven't changed the overhead structure. And what's reflected in that is the cost that's allocated to this pool is still significantly big for a contract model. And when we're trying to find lifeguards and stuff, we're still in it. We're not separated from it. And so I totally support whatever the commission says, and you guys, especially Josh or other people that have been on the Parks and Rec Commission. But I tell you, my fear is bigger picture. I see that, slowly but surely our community is changing, and Los Al is starting to become the city that, we're not the USA water polo city anymore. We're not the city that seems to be endless with the base and has all of this prevalence. We are, and now we need to start spending and acting like that small city. I mean, I'll challenge you guys a little bit. If you look at the pool, look at the revenue, look at the source of revenue, 40% of that revenue comes from Rossmore, right? I mean, we're not serving our constituency, we're serving the community. We still have this mindset that it's all about everybody. And if you look at the demographics, real estate is having a significant effect. We don't have a lot of young families moving in because no one can leave right now, except in the rental area. So I would challenge, like, the seniors program seems to have a bigger base of something I might want to be focused on versus the aquatics program right now. And that's a true problem. So I guess, Rich, I mean, I appreciate that we've even taken 5 or 10 more minutes than we probably should have. I just want to get it on the radar. This seemed like a segue that I wouldn't get stopped by the city attorney that I'm out of bounds, but I definitely think it's something we should think about. And hopefully we can, like Warren said, or whoever, we can have a meeting with the commissioners and see, because read the staff report, it's fascinating. They're wondering the same thing. They're struggling with that same, I can tell. So
with the MWR, they're not a marketing company. They're not. Their mission is not to provide services outside of the military. This is a new model for them as they start to absorb more property on the base. I think it's important we continue and develop the relationship with MWR, simply because there are other facilities that they're also learning how to run, such as the gym. As more money gets poured into that, they're not going to develop that to have it stand empty. They could, because their sole mission isn't to provide basketball leagues to the community. But I think we do a very, very good job of marketing this. My kids took swim lessons to the city of Los Alamitos. It was at the base, but the city was the brander. And I think that's important. How many kids aren't going to learn how to swim simply because they can't afford to go private or to a private company, or it's not convenient, or for whatever reason? So the more services we can offer, we're a facility deficient city, and I don't want to turn away any facilities right now. We need those facilities. We need the pool. We need the potential of a gym. Otherwise, somebody's going to absorb it, and once we walk away from it, we're never going to get it back. So for right now, I would be in favor of being the marketing management company for the aquatics program and see what develops over time. I don't know if we need to make a long-term decision right now for that. I really want to see how MWR develops, because this is a new journey for them as well. So with that, do I have...
I'll move it.
Move it. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now we can go on to public hearings. Item A, adoption of the City of Los Alamitos fiscal 2017-18 annual operating and CIP budget. And open it for public hearing. And seeing none, bring it back. Do we need a staff report?
If you would like a
Just a
staff
quick
report,
one.
Jason can give you a staff report.
Just quick.
Good evening. The item presented for your consideration is the fiscal year 17-18 annual operating and capital improvement budget, which is balanced. As you know, we've discussed the budget a number of times. In fact, we've had 4 budget workshops with the City Council since February, and we've had 5 separate study sessions with the Budget Standing Committee. In February, when we kicked off the budget process, we discussed and presented the preliminary general fund budget for 17-18, which reflected an operating deficit of about $274,000. The deficit was due to revenues and expenditures. On the revenue side, revenues were projected to remain relatively flat, while expenditures were projected to increase by about $465,000. And on the revenue side, we are having growth in terms of property tax revenue and sales tax revenue. In fact, the annual increase is expected to be approximately 3% on an economic basis. The issue is that on the sales tax side, we had some one-time adjustments in the current year, 16-17, that increased the cash flow of that tax revenue, but that was a one-time adjustment that won't carry over into the base of 17-18. Therefore, sales tax revenue is projected to be down on a cash basis in 17-18. On the expenditure side, when we put together the budget for 17-18, we included the increase in pension costs. So there was a right out of the chute $115,000 increase to the budget. In addition, when we put together the budget, what we've done in the past is we've built into the budget vacancy savings. We know that year to year there's retirements and attrition, and we've built those savings into the budget to close the budget gap. But we wanted to present a fully loaded budget, and so what we did was we put together a fully loaded budget with that assumed no vacancies, and therefore it increased the total cost of operations. Changes have been made to the budget, which have been outlined in the staff report. We also discussed these changes with the Budget Standing Committee. Most notable is, we've included vacancy savings associated with the temporary freeze that we've implemented across the board for all departments, and therefore have accounted for those savings in the budget, and that's eliminated the budget gap. At the same time, on the consent calendar for tonight, we had an item related to an organizational study that would allow us to look at those vacancies in 2 specific departments and identify whether or not those positions may potentially be eliminated permanently. So we're really looking for not just a short-term solution, but a long-term solution. And so I did want to highlight a couple of things in terms of the budget. The budget does not include additional revenues associated with the user fee study, which we discussed earlier this evening. It also does not include the zoning update, which we also discussed earlier this evening as well. The 16-17 fiscal year is projected to have a budget surplus of approximately $194,000. We'll know exactly what that number will be once we've closed the books, and we'll return to council in September. And at that time, we hope to be able to present an operating surplus for 16-17, and would recommend funding of the zoning update at that time. The general fund reserves are projected to be approximately $7.3 million at the end of June 30, 2018. There's approximately $200,000 of general fund reserves in the current year, in 16-17, that is being used to fund Los Al Boulevard. In addition, we've utilized a portion of next year's budget in terms of general fund reserves, about $97,000, to also fill the gap in terms of the Los Al Boulevard project. And so wanted to bring that to your attention. And so with that said, it's recommended that the City Council continue the public hearing for public input on the proposed budget and adopt the proposed budget.
Before I open up for public comment, I just wanted, we're hitting up on our 9:45 time limit. So I would need a motion to be able to extend that. We have a couple more items. that we need to discuss?
I'll move that we extend.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Okay, now we will open it up for public comment. Yeah. All right, close it for public comment, bring it back to the council. Any comments?
Sure.
Richard?
Yeah, you know, I want to thank everybody who's involved with this, staff and council. We do this right. You know, I talked to other cities who have one meeting in the early June and then jam the budget through later in the month. And, you know, my first year here, I felt was a disaster. I couldn't even follow the numbers at the end of the year. But ever since then, we've had an orderly process. It takes time. I mean, people dedicate a lot of time to understanding the numbers. Governmental accounting is not fun. You almost have to relearn it every year, it seems like. You know, Brett, the timing, the improvement really comes with your arrival. You know, you have done a phenomenal job of getting the process through. I have to tell you, I take all the credit in public, but I need like 2,000 votes and you only need 3. So, you know, it's fair. It's fair. And Jason, we're gonna stump you next year. I thought you wobbled once this year, but we didn't get it. We're gonna find something way in the back that you don't know. So next year, that's our promise to you. We're as a committee, we're gonna stump you. But it was a phenomenal job, and you know, I don't think a city does this better. Thank you.
So I'll say, I do want to thank the staff and the standing committee on budget, though. And I know the path at which Councilmember Murphy talks about, because that was certainly, I think, early after some transitions happened. And I know it was a very, very difficult time, because I think we're still trying to understand each other as electeds, and then staff was still getting used to us. And I think we at that time, I'll say, that then council did a disservice to staff and put them in a very difficult position. So I think the orderly process, the standing committee that looks at it, the briefings that we get on the off Monday from our council meeting once a month, I think has really been probably a godsend. It gives us that time to really have that thorough vetting out of the process, because I'm looking at this thing, and this is nothing as a surprise. We looked at all this stuff as we went. So I do want to thank staff and the standing committee on this. With that, I'll pass it back.
Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I guess enough accolades around there, but fantastic work, Brett, obviously shepherding this, and Jason, I don't think we stumped you once, and that's what Rich said, but it was honestly a pleasure doing it. Thank you for the council for allowing me to be on the standing committee. It was, you know, I can only count the meetings on 2 hands how many I've been to these, but I probably say I've had just an equal number of budget standing committee meetings as city council meetings, and they really were great and well prepared with what you had. So from my own finance background, it's nice to see how everything was laid out, and really kudos to you, your team, and the other directors as well, who also contributed their portions.
Great.
I thought the standing committee was better last year, but it's just me.
You might be biased.
Yeah. No, you know what? It's been a long journey, and I think as I'm getting closer to the end of my term and my final term here, I realize, like Warren said, what a journey this has been to go through. These used to be part drama, part theater, but really didn't do a lot of benefit for the community. And you know, the ad hoc committee is a tremendous amount of commitment with Jason, and we give Jason a hard time. I do say next year with the PERS funding thing, it's not gonna be stumping. It's gonna have to be some magic involved. But you know, you always seem to be able to get at the right time. And even this year, you got the PERS folks to come in and talk to us, the actuary, and be able to start going through and chart a path through that. So Brett, good job, everybody in staff. I still harass Rich, because when we got to the police, I still think him and the chief went a little tight there, but I think it was after he got out of the hospital, so we're all giving him a pass on that. But he was a little touchy there, but yeah. But anyway, thank you, everybody. And like I said, I wish there was more here, but we've seen this stuff like 5 times, so I really don't have any added benefit to comment on. Thanks.
And I'm going to ditto all that. I do want to give more accolades to Richard, because honestly, I haven't known any other way to do the budget but this way. When I came in, he had already instituted this, and it was great. And what it does more for just us to know the numbers, but the public sees all this. You know, these meetings are all televised in public, and so they see the numbers just as much as we do. So in the heart of transparency, I think this is a great idea. I understand Jason is a distant relative of David Copperfield, so I have high expectations for next year. He's got lots of rabbits to keep pulling out of hats, and so I'm looking forward to how he's going to spin those numbers next year to make this work. So with that, do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, ordinance, item 12A, expanded traffic commission authority, staff report.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. During the May 15th meeting, the City Council directed a revision to the agenda report, so it provided the Traffic Commission with advisory authority instead of final authority. So what you have here is a small little code amendment that adds a couple of words to two different sentences in the code that give them the authority to review and receive complaints for on-street parking, and then to review on-street parking requests as directed by the City Council. They do not have final authority, so you'll see in this code, it does not have appeal or call for review or those kind of tools needed when they have final authority. So their items will always come to you regarding parking for ratification and to pass an actual resolution. It is a code amendment because these words are in the municipal code. It's in 1.40.60, powers and duties, so you are just modifying their powers and duties.
Okay. Any discussion? Well, first public comment. And there's none. Back here, discussion?
I'll also open it up. I mean, I brought it up forward, and I've speaking last meeting about kind of in favor. So I won't go reiterate the whole points, but I'm in favor of adding these pieces on there. And the only thing I would add is that since it's something that was supposed to be reviewed every 2 years, it's been something we haven't reviewed and we discussed, but to give the Traffic Commission the authority and when we have this to give them to review the permit program, the residential permit program. So I know this is, I think, 2 readings we have to do in order the codes. So, but as one of the items, and whether it's a separate staff item to, once it's approved, to give them the residential permit program and have them review that as part of this authority.
Any other discussion? Could I consider that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The appropriate motion being
Yes.
to waive the reading and introduce ordinance number 2017-01, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Los Alamitos, California, amending the Los Alamitos Municipal Code by modifying section 2.40.60, expanding the authority of the Traffic Commission for on-street parking. Was that your motion?
That was way more exciting.
Exactly.
Yes. I'll make that motion.
I'll second that one too.
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Last item, 13A, designation of voting delegate and alternate for the League of California Cities 2017 conference. That would be September 13th through the 15th in Sacramento. Do we need a staff report on that, or any comment up here? That's something that I'd be interested in going to.
I'll move that the mayor goes.
All right.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And you?
Could we appoint an alternate as well?
Alternate?
Just anybody? I can't go.
Anybody?
We should have an alternate though.
I'll
What
be
else
an
you got
alternate if she can't go. I'm
Yeah, what
sure
else you got going on?
I'll make that motion that Mayor Pro Tem Egger is the alternate.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any other council-initiated business?
You know what? I just wanted to thank one more time city staff and Rossmore Community Services District. I was reading you guys went to the Community Services District meeting and you talked to them about helping fund the 4th of July.
Corey did that, yes.
Yeah, could you give a quick staff report or just a quick update? Because how cool was that? I mean, they definitely stepped it up. And Jim Ruth over there, I mean, I feel like we got in a non-threatening way, we got a good friend over there. All of us have dealt with him for so many years, and he's just doing great stuff over there. But so is that board.
Yes, thank you. I attended the Rossmore Community Services District, they have a budget committee, and I attended that meeting literally as I walked out of the last meeting with the military when they allowed us access back onto the airfield. So I attended that meeting and basically had given them a preliminary budget that was not looking so hot, and all of the expenditures that were going to go up and the revenues that were going to decrease. And at that meeting, they heard me out. They listened to what I had to say. They discussed it, and basically what they had at that meeting agreed to was hearing it at the full board meeting. That they were listening to some other, next year's budget and some of the other things that they had coming down, but would seriously consider an extra contribution. They already contribute, and for the past, I believe it's been 8 years, they've contributed $6,200 towards the event. So last week I attended the full board meeting. Again, provided them with a formal letter as well as a copy of the budget, or preliminary budget, and let them know our revenues were being decreased by about 35%, and our expenditures are going up by about 31%. And the 4 of the 5 board members are there, and they unanimously approved an additional contribution of $2,500 for this year's event. So they're contributing their normal $6,200 plus an additional $2,500 for this year's event. So they did say it was one time. We said we're definitely going back to the drawing board for next year's 4th of July to see what else is feasible between all of the entities, but we definitely wanted their input and to be part of the process, rather than this last minute request, which is really what it was. It's us asking to help offset our costs because they are significant this year. But we're very excited for them and very grateful for their contribution.
So we definitely have great relationships with SEAL and Cypress, and everybody does their part. But I don't know if it's appropriate, but it seemed like it'd be a nice gesture, maybe from the mayor, a note thanking them or something for stepping up and helping us out.
Yep. Definitely.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you. Any other comments? Richard?
Yes, as we're all very aware, the boulevard is going to be torn up through the summer. And I'd just like to encourage people, the whole audience here and those watching, to buy local. Let's not let our businesses hurt because we're in the process of trying to improve our city. It's going to be a rough 3 months for the businesses. As one day you can't turn left on one street, the next day the left turn's gone. So let's make the extra effort to support our own. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we're going into closed session, but we'd like to close in memory of Douglas Hauk, a longtime College Park North resident and neighbor of the Kusumotos. He died at the age of 82. He's survived by his wife, Nancy, his 4 sons, and his 4 grandchildren. So we'll close in his honor. And City Attorney, going into closed session.
Yes, the purposes of the closed session: conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 sub D sub 2. A point has been reached where, in the opinion of the legislative body of the local agency, on the advice of me, based on existing facts and circumstances, there's a significant exposure to litigation against the local agency, 1 potential case, and B, conference with legal counsel, initiation of litigation, also pursuant to 54956.9 sub D sub 4, based on existing facts and circumstances. City Council has decided to initiate, or is deciding whether to initiate litigation, 1 potential case.
And I have one quick, before we go into close. I did make a request of city manager that we do schedule a closed session to get an update on the Village 605 status. And I would ask the council, can we possibly have a special session just to get some update, and perhaps the city attorney can attend by phone just to provide some update to us in a closed session. So that's my request, and I'll leave it at that, and we'll see where it goes.